The flying boat shot forward, allowing them to see several giant beasts attacking a person. These beasts were called scorpion lions. They were 8th rank magical beasts. Their upper bodies were covered in fur, while their lower bodies were cloaked in plates of armor. They had long tails with huge stingers. Each of these scorpion lions was 300 meters long and crazily attacking one person. Long Chen and the others were surprised by the appearance of the person whom these scorpion lions were attacking. It was a slender, beautiful woman who wasn't wearing any clothes. She had 2 leaves covering her chest and a skirt made of woven leaves around her waist. Her legs were extremely large. She didn't have the proportions of a normal person. At this time, one of the scorpion lions opened its mouth, and a white ripple spread. The ground crumbled, and the woman pressed down on the ground. That allowed Long Chun and the others to see her face. Her face was beautiful, making her look like a spirit elf. Her nose pointed up slightly, and her eyes protruded out a bit more than a regular person's. Her pupils were emerald green, and there was an image of 6 leaves on her forehead. This woman was extremely strange. Her aura was completely different from a normal cultivator's. But based on the power she had displayed, she seemed to possess the power of a sea expansion expert. Even surrounded by these scorpion lions, she didn't panic. She held an emerald bow and she shot out an arrow. The bow and arrow were extremely simple. The bowstring looked to be a wooden vine, while the arrow didn't even possess an arrowhead. It was just a sharp stick. Shockingly, the arrow directly pierced through the scorpion lion's defenses. How is that possible? A stick was able to break the defense of an 8th rank magical beast? If that bow was a king item, then fine. But it was clearly just the simplest, most primitive bow. How did it possess such power? The scorpion lion roared painfully. It was the same furious roar that they had heard before. Guoran, prepare to attack. I'll give you a chance to be the hero saving the beauty. That woman's running out of energy, said Long Chen. Although Long Chen didn't understand this woman, from his years of combat experience, he could guess that this woman was like an oil lamp on the verge of running out of oil. That arrow she had shot out had clearly been pointed at the scorpion lion's eyes, a vital spot. But when she had unleashed it, her hand had shuddered, causing her arrow to miss and strike its neck. Boss! You really are my beloved boss, my dash. Just go! Long Chun grabbed Guoran and threw him off the boat. I swept through the 4 seas, crossed 1,000 mountains, caused huge billows in heaven and earth, slaughtered demons, eliminated devils, plucked the stars and moon. If there's a beauty in need of saving, Guoran will be her hero. Guoran struck a very flashy pose in the air as he shouted. Long Chun and the others almost coughed up blood. This was just too shameless. This damn chant of his was always identical, except he would change the last few lines to match the situation. Just how thick did a person's face have to be to say such a thing over and over again? Guoran's shamelessness gave them goosebumps. Long Chun had an urge to give this fellow a vicious beating. If he had to show off when there was a good chance to show off, then fine. However, right now, the only ones here were the Dragonblood Legion, excluding 1 outsider and a few magical beasts. Just who was he showing off to? It wasn't a time to be showing off, but he still forced it. It was completely unbearable. The woman seemed to have sensed Long Chen and the others' arrival a while ago, and she wasn't surprised by Guoran coming. She continued to nimbly dodge the scorpion lion's attacks. What are you dawdling for? Hurry up and attack. We're all busy, shouted Long Chen. If he hadn't tossed out Guoran, he'd have charged out already. This fellow was clearly waiting for a critical moment to interfere. Guoran helplessly pointed out his finger, and rays of golden light shot out. The heads of the scorpion lions were all pieced straight through the middle, and they exploded. Miss, don't be afraid. I'm a good person. I'm here to save you, and I won't ask anything of you. All you have to do is give your heart to me. After killing those scorpion lions, Guoran advanced closer to the woman. She suddenly raised her bow and pointed an arrow at Guoran, making him raise his hands innocently. The woman didn't react to Guoran's words. Her hands were shaking from how tired she was. Just pulling back the bowstring was taxing to her. Miss, put down your bow. I don't want to be killed when your hand slips. Ah, fine, you don't need to give your heart to me. Guaran shook his head. For some reason, that arrow gave him a sense of unease. It seemed that some energy within that arrow intimidated him. The woman still didn't reply. She glared at Guaran, but her arms trembled even more. However, when a certain person walked over, she was shocked and delighted. She put down her bow. What shocked everyone was that this woman immediately flew over to Long Chun and threw herself into his embrace. Hey, what's with this? I'm the one who saved you. You should be throwing yourself to my embrace, cried Guaran. Long Chun also found it strange. But he didn't sense any hostility from this woman, so he didn't refuse her. The woman really did just hug him like that. The leaf image on her forehead spun, and she took a step back. Friend, have you come to help our forest of life? The woman suddenly began to speak. I don't know what the forest of life is. I came to the spirit world to repay a debt. Long Chen shook his head. You have the aura of the forest of life on you. You have an agreement with the forest of life, so you are our friend. Agreement. Long Chun suddenly thought of the final words that the spirit world expert had said. She came from your forest of life? Long Chun created an image in the air with his spiritual strength. It was an image of the forest divinity that small nameless village in the eastern wasteland had offered sacrifices to. Yes, friend, my comrades are in danger. Can you help us? Asked the woman. Talking is too difficult. Transmit what you want to communicate with me through spiritual strength. Long Chun pressed a hand against the woman's forehead. The woman was clearly panicked inside, but her words didn't seem to match her expression. She probably wasn't able to speak this way easily. Meng Qi summoned Cloud. We have to go. Cloud appeared in the air. Meng Qi, Tang Wan'er, Long Chun, and the woman jumped on. Cloud let out a bird cry and transformed into a rainbow streak of light that vanished from the rest of the Dragon Blood Legion's sight. We're following. Guaran used the flying boat to fly off in the same direction. Due to the urgent situation, Long Chun had left first. Cloud had been in seclusion in the myriad spirit diagram this entire time. Its cultivation base was still at the peak of the 9th rank, but it was displaying more and more power of the cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow. Its aura had grown far stronger, and its speed was absolutely shocking. It flew so fast that there was no way to see their surroundings as they passed. Through the woman's soul, Long Chun confirmed that she was definitely from the same side as the forest divinity. She was from the spirit race. The spirit race was the indigenous race of the spirit world, and the forest of life was what they depended on to survive. Long Chun could have learned much more from this woman's soul, but he didn't, because that was an invasion of her privacy. He only received what she expressed to him. All he really needed to know was that he wasn't helping the wrong person. These ladies from the spirit world really are stubborn. They're still resisting. A corrupt expert pulled out an arrow sticking out of his shoulder, grimacing from the pain. There were hundreds of corrupt experts on this battlefield. They were surrounding a large tree, and there were over 10 spirit race women fighting against them, shooting out arrows continuously. The corrupt experts were unable to approach the women, because divine runes came falling from the huge tree, forming a natural formation that protected them. Under the protection of the tree, they were able to hold on. But at this time, the runes on the tree's leaves were starting to dim. The corrupt experts' attacks were constantly draining its energy. They were powerful experts within the Jade Core realm, and the tree couldn't last much longer. Fortunately, the arrows from the spirit race's women were also terrifying. They possessed some energy these disciples had never encountered before. If they were shot in their heads, their souls would instantly dissipate. Even the Yuan spirit of a soul transformation expert might be erased. That was why these Jade Core corrupt disciples had been in a deadlock with them for the better part of a day. Dozens of them had already been killed, infuriating them. They had to constantly dodge the rain of arrows as they attacked the tree. As long as the tree ran out of energy, these women would be easily caught. The runes on the tree's leaves were dimming, and the barrier protecting it was weakening. Each of their attacks was causing it to shudder as if it might break apart at any moment. Boom! The tree finally couldn't last any longer. The barrier exploded and the tree vanished, transforming into a withered seed. At the same time, one of the women coughed up a mouthful of blood. She turned pale and fainted, and the others hastily went to support her. Ha ha ha! Beauties of the spirit race, you're ours. The corrupt experts laughed greedily and sinisterly charged forward. They didn't know that a huge mouth had suddenly appeared in the sky above them. It devoured them all in one gulp. All the corrupt experts were devoured by Cloud. In front of a cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow, they didn't have the slightest opportunity to resist. Cloud had been cultivating in the myriad spirit diagram this entire time, and it had learned the divine abilities of the cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow race. Amongst them, the most terrifying was their devouring ability. Of course, that was why they were given the name heaven-swallowing. At the same time as Cloud devoured those corrupt experts, it swung its wings, and the spirit race women felt their bodies lighten. They appeared on its back. They were shocked and about to resist when the spirit race woman beside Long Chun seemed to communicate with them spiritually. They didn't need to speak to know what the others were saying. Those women immediately thanked Long Chun. But their clothes were far too simple, making things awkward. He tried his best not to look, but their bodies were all beautiful. Even Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er couldn't help but glance, let alone a man like Long Chun. The curious thing was that all the spirit race's experts were women. He saved 3 waves of them on his way, and they were women. It made him speechless that they all looked identical. It was almost impossible to tell them apart. Boom! Suddenly, an explosion shook the land, and a pillar of light soared into the air. They saw a blood-colored skeleton floating in the air, wielding a huge bone club. Facing the skeleton was a woman of the spirit race. An image of an ancient tree hung behind her, one that was even larger than a mountain. Chains shot out of the tree, attacking the skeleton. The spirit race woman fought against the skeleton, while countless experts of the corrupt path and spirit race were clashing in the distance. Their battle was extremely miserable, and both sides had taken losses. Corpses covered the land, but the corrupt path was currently winning. Their power was extremely great. They had over 10 Life Star experts and hundreds of Soul Transformation experts. Moreover, their Jade Core experts numbered in the tens of thousands. As for the Spirit Race's side, they were down to less than 10,000 members, and whether it was in terms of numbers or power, they were at a disadvantage. The worst thing was that their leader, the one who was fighting the skeleton, was already starting to lose. The chains she summoned were being blown apart one by one. Long Chun, please save our spirit guard, begged one of the spirit race women by Long Chen's side. Don't worry, with Long Chen present, your spirit guard will be fine, said Meng Qi. Both she and Tang Wan'er had recognized the master of that skeleton. I'll go greet him. I'll leave the rest to you two. Long Chen shot off. Meng Qi, Tang Wan'er, and Cloud charged into the fray. Sisters, tell your people to retreat. We're not that fierce, but when a certain fellow fights, he always causes a mess. Tang Wan'er smiled to the spirit race women. She knew that once Long Chen fought, he would definitely shake heaven and earth. On the battlefield, the corrupt experts seemed to be crazily attacking the spirit race women. But although it looked fierce, they were holding back. Their goal wasn't to kill the spirit race women, but to capture them alive. Just as the corrupt experts thought that they would be able to capture most of their prey, the latter suddenly retreated. At the same time, the sky darkened. What's going on? The corrupt experts were startled. Looking up, they saw a single wing covering the sky and smashing toward them. Watch it! It's a cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow, shouted a corrupt Life Star expert. He immediately launched an attack with his weapon. The other Life Star experts also attacked. They were people with great experience, and they knew how terrifying the cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow was. Boom! Rainbow light exploded. 7 Life Star experts had attacked all out, but were still knocked back, almost coughing up blood. The shockwaves of this exchange caused the other corrupt experts to fly back, and quite a few of the weaker ones were killed. The soul bound by its dream. Frigid wind moon. Two voices rang out at almost the same time. The corrupt experts suddenly entered a dazed state, feeling like mortals who hadn't slept in a week. They truly wanted to sleep. But once they slept, they wouldn't need to wake ever again. Watch out! It's a bewildering soul art. A sharp cry rang out, startled the corrupt experts who had been about to fall unconscious. That sharp cry came from a lifestar expert who specialized in the soul. He wasn't affected by Meng Qi. An icy crescent wind blade slashed out at the 7 lifestar experts that had just been sent flying by Cloud's attack. The 7 of them were startled, but blood qi suddenly erupted out of them, and blood runes condensed into a huge shield. Boom! The crescent wind blade collided with the blood shield. The wind blade exploded, and the shield formed from all 7 of them also collapsed, causing them to hack up blood. Due to how hasty their movements were, their internal organs were injured. The corrupt experts were in disarray, not having expected the spirit race to suddenly gain such powerful reinforcements. But when they saw who had come, their pupils shrank. The Xiantian Dao sect? They had yet to recover from their shock when Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er both formed a hand seal. 9 flowers appeared behind each of them, and heavenly Dao energy revolved around. With the manifestation supporting them, they appeared more beautiful than ever. What? The corrupt experts were even more shocked. No matter what, they would never have expected Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er to become terrifying rank 9 celestials. The instant the 2 of them summoned their manifestations, the corrupt experts felt their heavenly Dao energy sucked away. The amount of heavenly Dao energy they could use sharply dropped. Don't be afraid. They're just 2 people. Furthermore, they're just in the Jade Core realm. We dash. Boom. At this moment, a huge explosion shook the world, cutting off that person's shouting. A blood-red skeleton fell from the sky. It had been smashed down by a single person's fist. That person was as small as an ant when compared to the huge skeleton. But this ant completely blew the skeleton away. The expert who had been called the Spirit Guard had thought that the situation was hopeless. But just as the final blow was about to be delivered, Long Chun had arrived. That woman had received spiritual messages from the other members of the spirit race, and she looked in shock at the godlike figure that was standing in the air. Gue Yen, your pork chop ability has grown ever stronger. Last time I destroyed your skeleton. Could it be that you dug out your family's ancestor to take its place? Taunted Long Chun. There was a person at the top of the skeleton, and he was staring in shock at Long Chun. That person was precisely the one who had fought against Long Chun on Devil Spirit Mountain, the corrupt path's Gue Yen. The 2 of them met once again, both feeling immense hatred for the other. Last time, Long Chun had almost died to Gue Yan's curse, and had only survived thanks to the Nirvana scripture. As for Gue Yen, he hated Long Chun as well. His defeat in their last battle had cost him all his face, as well as the ghost general that he had been raising since childhood. When he had heard that Long Chun was still alive and had even shown immense power in front of everyone by defeating Luo Mingho, Gue Yen had almost lost his mind. He had learned that in the midst of his cultivation, and it almost made his chi go out of control. Ha ha ha. Good. The heavens really have eyes. Now I get another chance to defeat you. Gue Yen suddenly laughed. That laughter was full of rancor. As he laughed, his face split open as a terrifying injury was triggered. The blood pouring from his face made him especially frightening to look at when combined with his scarlet eyes. No wonder Lung Yuan cut your face. Your smile really is ugly. You should never smile again in the future, said Long Chun. Long Chun, I don't know if you're stupid or just conceited to dare to come to the spirit world. It seems that your sect leader didn't know that I would be here, laughed Gue Yen. Oh, is there any difference now that you're here? A difference? No, I suppose there isn't too much of a difference. In any case, you would die sooner or later. There's not much difference whether you die in the spirit world or the martial heaven continent. If you have something to say, just say it. If you have to fart, either keep it in or let it out completely, taunted Long Chun. You want to get information out of me? Keep dreaming. However, Long Chun, I admit I underestimated you. I didn't expect you to ask the Wine God Palace's high priest to remove my curse. I suppose you must have kneeled and kowtowed to him countless times? Sneered Guiyen. He completely ignored the others fighting. In truth, Guiyen was full of envy and resentment. If Long Chun had died to his curse, then at very least he could say that Long Chun had died to his hands, and his humiliation at having been defeated would be wiped away. His defeat in Long Chen's hands had turned him into a laughingstock of the corrupt path. People constantly discussed his defeat when he wasn't around. Now that he saw Long Chen again, he instinctively mocked and ridiculed him. It was like that was the only way to make himself feel a bit better. Do you not feel slapping yourself in the face is painful? Last time you bragged so hard. But weren't you still defeated? If a Lifestar expert hadn't saved you at that time, you would have never managed to escape. Well, you might have gotten away last time, but this time, I'll be taking your life. Long Chen's divine ring appeared, and 5 stars glowed in his eyes. Long Chen's aura began to rise. His robes and hair started to float. Seeing that he was unable to dredge up any valuable information from Guiyen, he decided not to waste any more time. Ha ha ha, Long Chun. I'll admit that you defeated me last time, but this time, death is upon you. Guiyen's expression was indifferent. The blood-colored skeleton beneath him raised its bone club. Last time I lost because of your dog's hit luck. Your flames just happened to suppress my ghost general, or you'd have died last time. Are you not curious? My ghost general was destroyed in our last battle. So how do I have it again now? Guiyen smiled. Long Chun simply stared at Guiyen without speaking. He had no intention of playing along. What he was saying was to either hurry up and release his fart or just restrain it already. The battle would start either way. Long Chun, by defeating my ghost general, you half-crippled my cultivation base. But I managed to benefit from that defeat. Speaking of which, I need to thank you. Due to your victory, the corrupt path suffered such immense losses that countless sects were implicated. To compensate me for my losses, Lord Xiaoluo gave the resources that should have gone to them to me, allowing me to recreate my ghost general. Your victory last time was only thanks to some people being careless. Those people were all executed, and I obtained the souls of millions of experts. My ghost general is no longer a ghost general. Now it's a ghost king. Have a taste of its power. Boom! The blood-colored skeleton's runes lit up. In truth, each of those runes was a person's face, and an incredibly evil aura came from it. It was like millions of ghosts were demanding others to join them. Blood mist filled heaven and earth, making it appear like hell on earth. The wails of ghosts pervaded the air. The ghost general was weak to your earth flame, but now I have an unrivaled ghost king. It's an unrivaled existence in the same realm. Guiyen roared, and the skeleton roared along with him. It looked like a devil from hell. As the blood mist spread, the spirit race experts had to retreat. They were filled with loathing for this blood mist, and they didn't dare to touch it. At this time, Guoran arrived with the flying boat. The Dragonblood Legion joined the battle, and there was no longer any need for the spirit race experts to fight. Are you done bragging? If you are, I'm going to attack. Long Chun slowly stretched his shoulders. His bones cracked. He wasn't even listening. He had heard similar words so many times that they all started to blend into each other. The only reason he was circulating his energy so slowly as a warm-up was because it had been 3 months since he had fought, and it felt like he was a bit rusty. During these 3 months, he had been eating medicinal pills all day. The Divine Gate Star had grown to the size of a soybean. His Feng Fu, Alioth, Life Fate, and Enlightenment Palace stars had also gone through a transformation. Even he wasn't sure what level he had reached right now. His 4 Chi Cs had grown by several times, and his 108,000 stars had been subtly changing as well. He was full of energy. I really hate your ignorant way of speaking. Last time you survived thanks to your dog's hit luck. But this time, I've gotten tired of your unchanging way of bragging. Can't you change it up a bit to keep it interesting? Let's just see who's stronger. Long Chun let out a single punch, shaking heaven and earth. He shot toward Guiyen. You're not fit to be my opponent. Die! Guiyen sneered. The giant skeleton's club came smashing toward Long Chun. The spirit race experts were all worried. Long Chun looked completely minuscule when compared to the skeleton. The Dragonblood warriors who were cleaning up the battlefield all looked at him with anticipation. They all felt like it had been a long time since they had seen Long Chun fight. Boom! Space exploded and the earth rocked. A howling tempest tore through the ground. This was a world-shaking collision. After this fierce exchange, the spirit race women stared in shock at the sky. Long Chun was still in his punching posture. As for the skeleton, it had been blown back 100 miles. Its bone club shattered. The skeleton simply lay there as if it was dumbfounded. Impossible! Guiyen roared furiously, unable to believe this. Do you like slapping yourself in the face so much? All right, I'll help you. Long Chun flew into the sky and then dove down like an eagle after its prey. A cauldron appeared in his hand, smashing toward the skeleton. Ghost King Fusion. Guiyen had no time to be shocked. He hastily formed hand seals, and he merged into the skeleton's skull like water. An image of Guiyen appeared on the skull. After Guiyen merged with the Ghost King, 9 blood-colored flowers appeared behind it. He was using the Ghost King's body to summon his manifestation. Once the manifestation appeared, the skeleton's shattered club regrew. It now had countless heavenly Tao runes on it and was much stronger than before. Boom! The club collided with the blazing dragon cauldron. Terrifying shockwaves spread, tearing apart the land. The Dragonblood warriors hastily defended, and Li Qi summoned a huge earthen shield to protect the spirit race experts. Once the shockwaves had passed, only a few experts from the corrupt path were left. Some of them with stronger cultivation bases had managed to escape through luck. The rest had all been slaughtered by the Dragonblood Legion. After all, the Dragonblood Legion had no weak members. Their cultivation bases had reached the mid-Jade Core realm, and they had over 3,000 rank 8 Celestials. The rest were rank 7 Celestials. Such a terrifying legion, when combined with the lead of 5 rank 9 Celestials in Meng Qi, Tang Wan'er, Guyang, Li Qi, and Song Mingyuan, was more than capable of annihilating those corrupt experts. So what if they had some Life-Star experts? They were not even close to being able to stop the Dragonblood Legion. Since their battle was done, the Dragonblood Legion spread out, forming a huge encirclement that sealed the battlefield. They stared at Long Chun's fight with rapt attention. Long Chun was repeatedly smashing the cauldron into the blood-colored skeleton. The Ghost King was definitely powerful, and each time its club collided with the blazing dragon cauldron, the ground would shake violently. This was a pure collision of power with no technique. After 3 smashes, Long Chun was still unable to cause any damage to Guiyen or the Ghost King. Long Chun felt helpless inside. The blazing dragon cauldron might be an ancestral item, but it wasn't a fighting item. It also wasn't heavy enough for him to unleash his true power. It seemed he would need to find a suitable weapon in the future. Split the heavens 5. Long Chun suddenly switched the cauldron for a fiery red sword. Swordlight soared into the air and then slashed toward the Ghost King. Guiyen was horrified. In that instant he felt a cold chill. The skeleton suddenly shrank and coiled around itself, forming a huge sphere. Blood-colored light formed around it, constructing multiple barriers. This was its strongest defensive state. Boom! The sword light slashed down. A huge explosion caused a bottomless pit to appear in the ground, and the sphere shattered into countless pieces. In front of the 5th form of Split the Heavens, this defense was too flimsy. Perhaps if Guiyen had launched an all-out attack instead, he might have been able to receive this blow. However, Long Chen's overwhelming power had made him lose confidence, so he had made a foolish mistake. Split the Heavens possessed a natural effect of breaking barriers and shields. By switching to defense, Guiyen had suffered immensely. His skeleton shattered, and Guiyen flew out from one of the fragments, vomiting blood. But Guiyen was a true expert. As he vomited blood, he quickly formed hand seals. His blood condensed into a huge portal that possessed powerful spatial fluctuations. He was using his own essence blood to build a spatial portal. It was one of his secret life-preserving techniques. Bang! His spatial portal had only just formed when a huge wind blade slashed into it, breaking it apart. It was Tang Wan'er. They all knew that killing a rank 9 celestial was very difficult. They not only had great power but also countless hidden trump cards and karmic luck supporting them. The heavens would create ways for them to escape, which made killing a rank 9 celestial as difficult as defying the heavens. So Tang Wan'er and the others were all prepared to stop Gue Yen from escaping. Tang Wan'er was also a rank 9 celestial, so their heavenly Tao energy was equivalent. She was more than capable of breaking his secret art. Gue Yen hastily took out a talisman, but just as he crushed it, his expression changed. This precious teleportation talisman was shredded, but no spatial energy came to bring him away. That was because at this moment, he was surrounded by countless wind blades that even cut through the space around him. The disturbance of the spatial energy around him turned his teleportation talisman into scrap paper. Teleportation talismans were not transportation formations. They needed stable space to activate, or if the space around them was fluctuating, the teleportation talisman wouldn't have the energy to resist the disturbance. After failing twice, the delay allowed Long Chen's sword to come again. This sword was about to take his life. "Long Chen, you'll regret it if you kill me," shouted Gue Yen, suddenly taking out a fist-sized emerald. That was a life storage stone, and it was capable of storing living creatures temporarily. Many life rings were created using low-level life storage stone, making it so they could only store plants. However, high-level life storage stones could accept living creatures. It was an extremely miraculous stone. The space inside it had no natural laws and no spiritual qi. It could barely give enough life energy for its inhabitants to not immediately die. Long Chen's sword stopped right before slashing through Gue Yan's head. But because it happened too suddenly, his sword swiped across Gue Yan's forehead, drawing blood. Long Chen had no choice but to stop. Small faces floated up one by one on the life storage stone. He could see hundreds of the spirit race women lying in that static space, completely unmoving. "Long Chen, I know you won't kill me." Gue Yen clenched the stone. As long as he crushed it, those spirit race women would be killed. Long Chen didn't say anything and just stared at Gue Yen coldly. He hadn't expected him to have such a trump card. No matter what abilities Long Chen had, he wouldn't be able to kill Gue Yen now. Was this the karmic luck of a rank 9 celestial? Long Chen, the warriors of the spirit race aren't afraid of death. As long as you kill him, they'll be happy even in death. Otherwise, with this person's power, he'll kill even more of our sisters in the future. The one called the Spirit Guard brought the others back. Looking at the life storage rock, she felt a bit unwilling, but she still urged Long Chen to kill Gue Yen. That made Gue Yan's expression change. Right now, he could only use these hostages to extort Long Chen. This was his final trump card. Without it, he would definitely die. "Long Chen, I trust you won't do that. You'll let me go." Gue Yen stared at Long Chen confidently. "You know me so well?" Long Chen stabbed his sword into the ground, leaning on it. His expression was calm. "Give up on scheming. Even if you could defeat me, you can't kill me instantly. It's impossible for you to prevent me from crushing this life storage rock." Gue Yen seemed to see through Long Chen's thoughts. Long Chen was truly unable to do this. He had dozens of ways to kill Gue Yen, but he couldn't stop him from crushing the life storage stone right before his death. Even if Meng Qi, Tang Wan'er, Gu Yang, and the others helped, it was impossible. This trump card of Gue Yan's just happened to be Long Chen's weak point. "You win. Leave the life storage ring, and I'll let you go," sighed Long Chen. "Long Chen, it's not worth it." The spirit guard was startled. "No, killing him isn't worth it. In my eyes, he's just a dog. I can take his life whenever I want. Getting the lives of hundreds of sisters for the life of a dog is an excellent trade," said Long Chen. Gue Yan's expression sank, but he didn't say anything. Although he was mocked by Long Chen, he knew he had managed to save his life. I want to bring the life storage stone with me. You can send someone probed Gue Yen cautiously. Don't play this game with me. Although you have a trump card, it isn't as powerful as you think. You can threaten me, but you can't threaten the people of the spirit race. If you try taking a single inch, I won't be so lenient, said Longchen coldly. All right, I swear. You aren't qualified to swear an oath with me. Gue Yen, it seems you still don't understand your situation. You have no qualifications to bargain or make conditions right now. The people you've captured aren't people from the Dragonblood Legion. Do you understand? Gue Yan's expression changed several times. He shouted, Then how do I know you won't go back on your word as soon as I hand over the life storage stone? TCH, my boss just feels sorry for these sisters. Your life isn't even worth a fart to him. Furthermore, who do you think my boss is? Within all the Central Plains, he's well known for being a real man. When does he ever go back on his word? As for your own garbage reputation, how much crap do you think that's worth? Shouted Guoran. Gue Yen thought about it, and he agreed that it was true. Although Long Chun was famed for being domineering and vicious, he never went back on his word. There were many things people cursed him for, but that wasn't one of them. Spirit race, if I hand over this life storage stone, will you attack me? Gue Yen still wasn't at ease, and he shouted to the spirit race experts. His Ghost King was destroyed, and his combat power had dropped precipitously. Let alone Long Chun, even the spirit guard could kill him. Long Chun is the friend of the spirit race. His attitude is our attitude as well, said the spirit guard. Although they all wanted Gue Yen dead, they also hoped for their sisters to return alive. This contradiction made it so although they were unwilling to see Long Chun release Gue Yen, they were grateful to him as well for the lives of their sisters. Fine, I'll trust you this time. Gue Yen clenched his teeth. He knew he had no other choices and tossed the life storage stone to Long Chun. Long Chun received it and tossed it to the spirit guard. The spirit guard activated it, and light flashed. Hundreds of spirit race women appeared on the battlefield. The other spirit race women went up and pressed their hands on their foreheads. Life energy poured into them, awakening them. Can I leave now? Gue Yen was still a bit worried. His life was in Long Chen's hands. Scram! Long Chen had originally wanted to ask him some more things, but asking the spirit race experts would probably be better. Gue Yen took out another teleportation talisman. Crushing it, spatial energy wrapped around him. But just as he was about to be teleported away, an arrow shot through the teleportation talisman. Bastard, are you going back on your words? Roared Gue Yen. Sorry, truly sorry. My bow went out of my control. Please, go ahead and take out another talisman, apologized Guoran. But it was obvious to everyone he had done it on purpose. Do you think teleportation talismans are cabbages? I only had 2, roared Gue Yen. Is that so? Then, do you want me to send you off? Guoran raised a dark red crossbow, his expression sincere. This new crossbow was a new invention, and the pressure it emitted gave others a chill. Long Chun, what do you think you're doing? Demanded Gue Yen. Hurry up and scram. Long Chun frowned impatiently. Gue Yen looked from Long Chun to Guoran to his knocked crossbow. Clenching his teeth, he transformed into a ray of light that shot into the distance. Guoran followed him with the point of his crossbow, ready to attack at any time. But Long Chen didn't give the order. Boss, he really is going to get away, said Guoran unwillingly. Let him go. I let him go on purpose. Long Chun was nonchalant. On purpose. Everyone was flabbergasted. No matter how they looked at it, it didn't look like he had done this on purpose. Meng Qi. This is Gue Yan's purest essence blood from his forehead. With your power, you should be able to use it to track his approximate position, right? Long Chun handed a drop of essence blood to Meng Qi. Seeing that, Gu Yang and the others came to a sudden comprehension. It seemed that Long Chun had intentionally pierced Gue Yan's forehead at that time. He had used his sword to extract a drop of Gue Yan's purest essence blood. As for Gue Yan, in that life and death juncture, he hadn't noticed Long Chen doing this. The essence blood from the space between a person's eyebrows was their purest. That was where their soul was condensed. It was a place where a person's chi, soul, and essence met. Yes, this should be no problem. Meng Qi smiled. She was a rank 9 celestial, and her soul energy was fused with her heavenly Tao energy. Tracking a person's general position was truly simple for her. Boss, let me prostrate myself toward you. Guoran worshipfully looked at Long Chun. Long Chun wasn't just powerful. His ability to adapt to sudden changes was also monstrous. Gui Yen had forced him into a passive position, but because of this drop of essence blood, the initiative was once more in Long Chen's hands. Best of all, Gui Yen had no idea that this essence blood was in Long Chen's hands. His position was in Long Chen's control now. Respected friends, thank you for your help. The spirit race will always remember your kindness. At this time, the spirit guard bowed toward Long Chun in a very strange and ancient manner. The other spirit race women followed along, expressing their gratitude to Long Chun. You're too courteous. I want to ask, can you bring me to see that senior from your forest of life? I came here in order to thank her, said Long Chun. Of course we can. The spirit guard answered directly, and so they all boarded the flying boat. The Dragonblood Legion became lively, because these beautiful women of the spirit race were wearing very popular clothes. Long Chun had to cough very loudly a few times for them to settle down. Long Chun found that these spirit race women didn't show the slightest shyness in the face of the Dragonblood warriors' fiery gazes. Their expressions were very natural. In fact, they seemed pure and naive like newborns. Through a simple conversation, Long Chun learned that this battlefield had just been an outpost. The true battle had yet to start, but the situation was already very tense for them. Long Chun learned that the heaven-devouring forest was called the Dark Forest in the spirit world. They were the enemies of the forest of life. The two sides were like water and fire, and they had been fighting for countless years. As they flew, they saw more and more spirit race experts patrolling this area. It seemed they had entered the territory of the spirit race now. When the flying boat first passed those spirit race experts, they were startled and about to activate the alarm before they saw the spirit guard waving to them. The battlefield here was huge. Even with the flying boat, it took them some time before they saw a verdant, thriving forest. When he saw that forest, Long Chun smiled. That was a familiar aura. Endless life energy invigorated everyone's minds. It was completely different from the dark forest. This place was full of tranquil air that freed people of their worries. Just entering this forest would make a person feel like their heart was being cleansed. When Long Chun and the others came off the flying boat, they couldn't help closing their eyes and sensing that sacred and pure energy in the air. It made them feel so close to the forest. Long Chun had felt this aura before. This was the aura the forest divinity had possessed, but now it was much denser. Towering trees still covered the sky, but sunlight managed to sprinkle on the ground. From a distance, it looked like streaking rainbows were roaming within the forest. It was a world of fantasy. How beautiful! Meng Qi was enchanted by this dreamlike forest. Friends, please come. They had only just begun appreciating this beautiful world when a translucent figure walked out of the forest. Forest divinity? It's good to see you again. Thank you for your favor from back then. That was the only reason I could reach my current level. Long Chun immediately recognized her familiar voice and aura. The translucent figure walked out of the forest. Ripples condensed into a graceful woman wearing a green dress and an emerald hat. I am Ling Yao. I know the human race's cultivators don't like to bother with too much etiquette, so you can call me Sister Ling Yao. A single smile from her made everyone feel like they were being cleansed by spring wind. They all felt a good feeling for her that came from the bottom of their hearts. I should be the one to thank you. If it hadn't been for you, it would have been impossible for me to return to the spirit world so quickly. Come. Let me welcome you to the forest of life. Ling Yao stretched out her hand. Divine light fell and condensed a rainbow bridge that stretched into the depths of the forest. This rainbow was composed of countless rainbow-colored leaves. As they walked along with it through the giant forest, immortal chi swirled around them, making them feel like they had entered an immortal world. Lights began to twinkle from the huge trees. They were coming from butterflies that flew through the forest. Their wings gave off a fairy light that adorned the forest, making it feel dreamlike. Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er were both intoxicated with this beauty. They gently reached out their hands, and butterflies flew over to them, landing on their hands and arms. Their fairy light illuminated their faces. Not even a master painter would be able to capture that scene. When Long Chun saw them like that, he was simply stunned. More and more butterflies came over, circling around everyone. Some brazen ones landed on their bodies. Even the Dragonblood warriors involuntarily came to a stop, afraid that if they moved, they would scare them away. These butterflies were incredibly beautiful, but they looked extremely weak. The Dragonblood warriors didn't dare to touch them in fear of harming them. Seeing more and more of the butterflies coming, Ling Yao sighed emotionally. Dream butterflies, go play somewhere else. Our guests need to keep going. The butterflies were like naughty children that were shooed off by an adult, and they scattered. In that instant, they filled the air, illuminating everything for a moment. The light then slowly faded deeper into the forest. Sister Ling Yao, the spirit world is so beautiful. Can we come here more often? Asked Tang Wan'er, completely infatuated with this world. Of course you can. As long as our forest of life is still present, you can come whenever you want. Ling Yao smiled, but Long Chun saw an unnatural expression flitted across her eyes. Sister Ling Yao, I came here to repay my debt to you. If it hadn't been for your divine life elixir, I would probably have died a long time ago. So no matter what troubles the forest of life has, I will do my best to help, even if I have to sacrifice my life, promised Long Chun. He could see that the forest of life was most likely in an extremely bad situation. Sister Ling Yao, since you saved our boss, the entire Dragonblood Legion will help repay you. Without boss, we wouldn't have our current achievements. So we will stand together with you no matter what, added Guoran heroically. They all knew that Long Chun was someone who cared deeply about returning debts. The favor of a drop of water in need had to be repaid with a gushing spring. As for Long Chen's debt to her, it was truly enormous. Ling Yao gratefully bowed. Thank you for your kind intentions. Please just follow me. The Spirit Emperor has been waiting for a long time. Ling Yao continued to lead the way. More and more life forms appeared in the forest, curiously staring at them. Long Chun and the others saw huge tigers lying on the ground, resting. They also saw huge pythons extending their heads to stare at them. 11th rank magical beasts? Those magical beasts didn't give off any malice, but their auras were extremely shocking. They were magical beasts on the life-star level. Although 11th rank magical beasts were on the same level as human life-star experts, there was a great gap in combat power. An 11th rank magical beast could instantly kill ordinary life-star experts. However, these magical beasts didn't give off any hostility as they passed. More and more of them appeared as they entered deeper into the forest, but they were all very tranquil. It was like they were domesticated. They are the protector spirit beasts of the forest of life. They're our friends. They'll only attack when facing the brutal dark forest, explained Ling Yao. Eventually, a large open space appeared in front of them. Many floating islands hung in the air. The flying islands were all of different sizes. The larger ones would be hundreds of miles wide, while the smaller ones were just a few meters. Those islands were overflowing with greenery. They were like green clouds floating in the sky. Spring water flowed down from them. Under the sunlight, it was especially dazzling. They were like silver rivers flowing down from the heavens. Such beauty was something Long Chun and the others had never imagined even in their dreams. They were all intoxicated by the sight. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to rise. Only then did they realize that the rainbow bridge beneath them had disappeared, replaced with a rainbow-colored parrot that was carrying them to the floating islands. They flew past thousands of floating islands. From this height, their admiration of the spirit world's supernatural beauty increased even more. Originally, the spirit world had 8 places with similar floating islands. Unfortunately, this place is the only one left. Seeing that Long Chen and the others were stunned by the beauty here, Ling Yao was first proud, but then she lamented. The dark forest would destroy such beauty? Raged Tang Wanner. After entering the forest of life, they sensed a feeling of unprecedented tranquility. It made them feel even more disgust for the outside world's slaughter. When this place was compared to the dark forest, one was a wonderland while one was hell on earth. All of them felt regret that those other floating islands had been ruined. Long Chun. Let's eliminate the dark forest. Guoran was also enraged. How are we supposed to eliminate them? With your mouth? Demanded Long Chen. Did Guoran think he could brag about such a thing? Just how vast was the dark forest? They had countless tree demons. The portion they had traveled through was probably less than 1/1,000,000th of the total dark forest. The only reason the dark forest had allowed them to pass was because the trees had mistaken them to be on their side. That was why they had managed to go straight to the battlefield. But if this hadn't happened, they would have had to face terrifying tree demons and berserk magical beasts. Long Chun couldn't help but feel that his power was too minuscule. The forest of life was also extremely powerful. Just those magical beasts they had seen on the way represented a terrifying force. Furthermore, those magical beasts should just be a portion of what the forest of life had. The forest of life was shockingly powerful, so Guoran's bragging was out of place. Boss, of course I'm just bragging, but I'm sure an unrivaled hero like you can do it. Guoran laughed mischievously, pulling Long Chun up so his fall would be worse. Long Chun, the dark forest is too evil. I know you have some evil plots, some wise stratagems to help the forest of life. Tang Wanner held Long Chen's hand, standing on the same front as Guoran. Then she looked around and whispered, "Once you drive away the dark forest, think about how nice it would be if we came to live here. You want to live here?" Long Chun was first startled, but then when he thought about it, once all his problems were resolved, to bring a bunch of beauties and come live in seclusion in the spirit world sounded perfect. They could do some good things and have a whole group of babies. If he could have such a life, he wouldn't exchange it even for the chance to become a god. 2 hours later, they flew past the region of floating islands. But what greeted them was a desert. The terrain changed so suddenly that it caught them off guard. There was only a single tree within the desert. At this time, it was night, and they could see the tree piercing into the sky. They had never seen such a giant tree. Its branches were huge and covered the sky. The stars that twinkled above them looked like the tree's fruit. However, Long Chun saw that the tips of the branches were starting to wither. The tree was giant, but it also gave off a feeling that its vitality was about to run out. When Long Chun and the others arrived, a gentle rain floated down. However, that wasn't rain but women of the spirit race. They were flying down from the giant tree. A sea of beautiful women surged over to their side, and Guoran lost his voice. It was his first time seeing so many beautiful women. Respected guests, welcome to the spirit world. Just at this moment, a voice rang out, and all the spirit race women knelt on the ground. Ripples spread from the branches of the giant tree. A rain of light fell, and a slender figure appeared within it. She was a beautiful woman who looked to be in her 30s. She was slender, and her hair was tied in a high knot. Each part of her was beautiful. She held a wooden staff in her right hand. Immortal mist revolved around the staff, and an emerald gemstone was inlaid in its head. Powerful life energy fluctuations came from it, as though it was alive. When she appeared, all the spirit race women knelt on the ground, and their hands clasped over their chests. Their expressions were pious, as if they were offering their respects to a god. "Greetings, senior." Long Chun didn't know what he was supposed to call her, so he simply acted in accordance with the human race's customs. "When Ling Yao returned, she mentioned you. For you to come to my spirit world with kindness in your hearts. You are my respected guest." The beautiful woman smiled. "Long Chun, this is the leader of the spirit world, the spirit emperor," said Ling Yao. Long Chun was a bit speechless. Why hadn't she introduced them earlier? He was just about to open his mouth and switch senior with spirit emperor. Yet the spirit emperor waved it off. Spirit world's customs are completely different from the human races. You don't need to be constrained in it. As the respected guests of my spirit race, I'd like to invite you to dance together with the women of my spirit race. Music suddenly began to fill the air. Long Chun and the others raised their heads to see that it was coming from birds that had filled the air. The spirit race women began to dance. Each of their movements was graceful and elegant. Long Chun and the others were a bit embarrassed, because these women only had leaves covering their private areas. A great deal of their skin was exposed, making this scene too stimulating. However, the women then began to laughingly pull the Dragonblood warriors into their dance. Those Dragonblood warriors became even more embarrassed. When it came to hacking people with their blades, they had some skill, but having coarse men like them dance made them feel like they might die of embarrassment. Furthermore, with the spirit race women holding their hands, their faces turned completely red. However, they quickly found that these women were as pure as children. They had no other intentions, which made them feel ashamed of their thoughts. The wood cultivators quickly became accustomed. They were the first to feel the purity of these spirit race women. Tang Wanner was also very unrestrained, dancing with two of the spirit race women. Tankling laughter came from them occasionally. It was like everyone was being brought back to their childhood and was simply playing. Everyone gradually became accustomed. The flashy Guaran did his best to display his own dance as he was surrounded by a group of women. It looked about as ugly as a bear trying to scratch its own back, making these women clap and laugh. As for Guaran, he thought they were praising his dancing, and he began to dance even harder. Long Chun, are you not dancing? Asked Ling Yao. Me? I think I'll pass. If I start dancing, I think I'll be even worse than that fellow. Long Chun looked at Guaran. Come, I'll show you. It's very simple. Ling Yao grabbed Long Chen's arm and pulled him into a dance. In truth, their dance was very simple. There were only a few movements, and it wasn't something that required great skill. Long Chun couldn't refuse a dance request from the person who had saved his life, so he thickened his skin and danced. He matched Ling Yao's movements. He quickly sensed something strange. As he entered the rhythm of the dance, he noticed a strange air flow around him. It felt like his heart was being cleansed by the dance, as if his soul was being purified. This was a feeling that made a person abandon all their misgivings and become one with the world. In just a moment, Long Chin had relaxed a great deal. He felt like he had returned to his childhood and was gleefully playing under the watchful eye of his mother. There was no mocking, no struggle, and no competition. It felt like they were all bathed in sunlight, playing like carefree children. This feeling was something that had long since been forgotten under the torrent of blood and battle. Today they finally found it again. Tang Wanner was dancing gaily, while Meng Qi was also dancing with one of the spirit race women, an expression of peace and contentment on her face. This dance is called the spirit of life. It's the blessing the life God left for us. Whether you are in a good mood or a bad mood, whether you are angry or sorrowful, as long as you dance this dance, the wounds of your heart will be soothed, and you will feel happy and safe. Ling Yao looked up at the tree above them. A grateful and devout expression appeared on her face. Long Chun was startled. Was this giant tree the spirit race's life god? After an unknown amount of time, everyone became exhausted. Long Chun was also one of them, and he fell asleep without realizing it. It was like he had gotten tired of playing and was now sleeping in the embrace of his mother. He felt completely safe in her embrace. He didn't know how long he stayed in that moment, but this dream suddenly took a turn. A bottomless abyss appeared behind him, and he felt like he would drop and break all his bones as soon as he turned. He instantly awoke. Waking up, Long Chun realized he was lying in Ling Yao's embrace. She was staring at him with care. Sorry about this. Long Chun hastily crawled up. He found that all the Dragonblood Legion was asleep, each of them in the embrace of a woman. Those spirit race women had spiritual light flowing around them. The Dragonblood warriors were like sleeping babies, lying in their embrace. They are enjoying the blessing of the life god. The life god's power is soothing their sorrows, letting their souls sublimate. But you woke as soon as you fell asleep. It seems you have too many burdens to relax. The Spirit Emperor walked over, a trace of pity in her eyes as she stared at Long Chun. Long Chun smiled slightly. It's not that bad. There are many things that I have to carry, and I can't just run away from them. If I did, it would be tossing my burdens to someone else, and that's not what a man should do. Spirit Emperor, I came to the spirit world to return my debt, but it seems, without even paying my debt, I've accumulated a new one. He knew that the Dragonblood Legion was in a special, fetus-like state. This kind of state was something all cultivators would long to achieve. The meditative state was a state of spiritual emptiness. By releasing everything, you became closer to the heavenly Taos and could comprehend them better. However, this state was artificial. Just by wanting to enter this state, you had a goal which contradicted the point of this state. That made it very difficult for one to grasp anything about the heavenly Taos. Despite its low efficiency, this meditative state was the only cultivation method to get closer to the heavenly Taos, so everyone had to use it to increase their mental realms. A person's mental realm was just as important as their cultivation realm. Normally, the mental realm had to be higher than the cultivation realm. The mental realm was like a canal, while the cultivation base was the water. The canal had to be constructed perfectly to allow water to flow through it. If a person's mental realm wasn't high enough and their cultivation base sharply exceeded it, it could easily ruin a person's foundation and cause a heart devil. So there were many geniuses that couldn't put their full energy into raising their cultivation base because their mental realms were lagging. Now the Dragonblood Legion was in an innate meditative state. This was completely different than when cultivators forced themselves into a meditative state. In the secular world's words, everything you gained while you were still in the womb was innate, while everything you had after you were born was acquired. Once you were born, you couldn't gain more innate things. But the Dragonblood Legion had returned to a fetus-like state. This was practically a heaven-defying opportunity for them. As long as their mental realms were high enough, Long Chun could refine medicinal pills for them to raise their cultivation bases rapidly. That was why he was bitterly smiling. He hadn't even returned his debt, and a new one was already piled onto it. There's no need for you to care about this debt. Anyone who sincerely has good intentions for our spirit race is our precious guest. Do you know those dream butterflies you attracted when you first entered the forest of life? The dream butterflies are the most sensitive spirit creatures within this forest. For them to like you means you truly care about us. We don't have anything to repay you with, so this is just a bit of kindness from us, said the Spirit Emperor. Spirit Emperor, what trouble have you encountered? I want to help you, said Long Chin. This trouble isn't so simple. It might not be long before the forest of life will cease to exist. Is it really so grave? The dark forest has gathered reinforcements from many different powers, inflating their forces. And even before this, just the dark forest alone was hard enough to resist. Now, the spirit race warriors are no longer able to block them, and the battle lines are being forced closer and closer to us. The forest of life itself is not able to kill other life forms, and being infected by their grievance and resentment is toxic to us. The spirit race warriors and spirit beasts are the only things we can depend on. But looking at the current situation, there's no hope, sighed the Spirit Emperor. So thank you for coming here, but we don't want to implicate you. That would just make us feel worse. Throwing away your lives for a hopeless battle isn't worth it. Since we've come, we came prepared. Even if we have to die, we will stand beside you. Even if we have to fight to the last man, to the last drop of blood. This is the spirit of the Dragonblood Legion, said Long Chun firmly. This was his principles and the principles of the Dragonblood Legion. But if you help us, you will become the enemies of all the martial heaven continent's powers, warned the Spirit Emperor. Why would that happen? Asked Long Chun with shock. The answer would take a long time to explain. The Spirit Queen sighed and began to tell Long Chun a story he had never heard before. Rumor had it that, in the Immortal era, the spirit world had had very good relationships with the human race. The spirit race had powerful life energy skills and had helped the human race countless times against their powerful enemies. In that battle of the Immortal era, in order to help the human race, the spirit world had lost many of its experts. It had been forced to seal itself off to recover. Then the Dark Era came. The spirit world was also attacked, with foreign tree demons invading. At that time, they still hadn't recovered from their previous losses. When the Dark Era ended, the Martial Heaven continent had been devastated, and the spirit world had taken disastrous losses. The Dark Forest grew stronger. At first, they only managed to take over a small part of the spirit world, but now they began to spread. Other than their powerful tree demons, the Dark Forest also had berserk magical beasts. As for the Forest of Life spirit trees, they couldn't kill other creatures. Only their spirit race warriors and spirit beasts could fight them. However, they were unable to stop the advance of the Dark Forest. The Dark Forest's territory grew greater and greater, while the Forest of Life's territory shrank with each passing year. This was a slow battle. Since the Dark Era had passed, and the human race had recovered, the spirit race asked for help. However, the sovereigns that had once led the human race heroically had all fallen, and the Martial Heaven continent had completely changed. Each person was selfish, and no one came to help the spirit race. In fact, people began to curse the spirit race for betraying their trust and not helping the Martial Heaven continent during the Dark Era. They thought that the huge losses they had taken were all because of the spirit race's betrayal. How could they be so shameless? Raged Long Chun. This was too evil. Although he hadn't spent a long time with the spirit race's people, he had no doubt whatsoever toward them. They would never lie. If they just didn't help us, that would be one thing. But then after having a falling out with us, they began to help the Dark Forest suppress us, said the Spirit Queen sadly. Are they worse than beasts? Long Chun couldn't imagine this. Just what had happened to the human race? Why would they do something so treacherous? Suddenly he had a thought. Could it be? Yes, it stemmed from greed. Everything in the Forest of Life is filled with life essence. The spirit beasts, the spirit trees, the spirit warriors, all life forms within the Forest of Life are treasures in the outside world that can extend a person's lifespan. As expected, in front of great enticement, humans would also become depraved. Even a saint could become a devil. Does the entire Martial Heaven continent side with the Dark Forest? Asked Long Chun. If the Shen Dao sect had also sided with the Dark Forest, he wouldn't know how to feel about it. About all of them. The Corrupt Path, the Ancient Races, Pill Valley, the Shen Beasts, they all stood by the side of the Dark Forest. As for the Righteous Path, they acted like they didn't see anything. But some sects stealthily sent some people to kill the creatures in the Forest of Life, so the Righteous Path also isn't our friend, answered the Spirit Queen. Hearing this, Long Chun sighed with relief. As long as the Shen Dao sect hadn't participated in killing them, he could accept it. He finally realized what Li Tianxian had been about to tell him. Clearly, Li Tianxian had already figured out the situation in the spirit world, and had predicted that Long Chun would be surrounded by enemies. But even if Li Tianxian had told him all this, Long Chun would still have come to the spirit world without any hesitation. The thing that disappointed him was that whether it was the Shen Dao sect, the Heaven-Splitting Battle sect, the Heavenly Sword Gate, or the Wine God Palace, all these sects he had a close relationship with had all chosen to be silent in the face of the spirit world's crisis. Then he supposed that any single sect couldn't become enemies with so many sections. They could only act like they didn't know anything. At the same time as he was disappointed, he was enraged. If people could abandon the allies that had fought alongside them so easily, were they even worthy of being called cultivators? Was this in order to live a longer but sullen life? If you didn't even dare to do the things you wanted to do, then what was the point of cultivating? Spirit Queen, on behalf of the human race, let me apologize. I'm ashamed of my ancestors for their actions, but the Dragonblood Legion and I will stand together with you. We will live and die together, swore Long Chun. Are you prepared to become enemies with the entire Martial Heaven continent? Asked the Spirit Queen. If I have to be enemies with them, then fine. In any case, I have plenty of enemies already. I don't mind increasing the scale a bit more. Long Chun smiled. Wasn't that precisely the case? The Ancient Races, Corrupt Path, and Pill Valley were his mortal enemies. Which one didn't want his life? As for the Shen beasts, as soon as he had accepted Cloud, he had made his preparations to be enemies with them. To put it bluntly, a dead pig wasn't afraid of boiling water. Since things had already reached this point, he might as well do what he wanted. Although he had many things to accomplish, if he didn't even dare to repay his debts, then would having a higher cultivation base matter? This wasn't his first time putting his life on the line, and he was already used to it. Long Chun, thank you. The Spirit Queen was extremely grateful. After being betrayed by so many humans, this was her first time encountering a human who would sacrifice their life for them for a small favor. Spirit Queen, I have many questions I want to ask you. Ask away. As long as I know, I will answer. Why are the spirit warriors all women? Where are the male warriors? This was something that he had been holding back for a long time. In all the forest of life, he hadn't seen a single male. There are no male warriors in our spirit race. These warriors are not humans. They are the fruit of the life god. The Spirit Queen raised her head to look at the giant tree. Their fruit. Longchen jumped in shock. How was this possible? Yes, the fruit of the life god tree. They took human form with the life god tree's power. Bows and arrows are the martial weapons that allow them to unleash their greatest power. Although their arrows are made of ordinary wood, when they shoot, they will pray to the life god, giving their arrows divine power that can pierce the armor of experts and the hide of magical beasts. Now Long Chun understood why their arrows were so strangely powerful. It is because they are the fruit of the life god tree that they are like pure and naive children. They are like a sheet of white paper. After years of fighting against the dark forest, countless spirit warriors have lost their lives. In order to protect everyone, the life god has spent all its energy. You can also see how bad the life god tree situation is. It's unable to give birth to any more spirit warriors. Originally, when the spirit warriors die, a portion of them will transform into spiritual chi and return to the forest of life to be absorbed by the life god tree. But when the martial heaven continent's experts capture them, they will refine them into divine life elixir. Fury appeared on the Spirit Queen's face. The spirit warriors who landed in enemy hands all suffered miserably. This was why Guiyen had captured those spirit warriors. But with the corrupt path's lecherousness and cruelty, they would inflict even more suffering on them. What is the origin of the Dark Forest? They invaded the spirit world during the Dark Era. Was that a coincidence or part of a scheme? If it's part of a scheme, what is their goal? Long Chun was extremely curious toward the Dark Forest. Just how had those tree demons formed an agreement with the martial heaven continent's experts? I'm ashamed to say that our heads aren't as clever as the human races. We've never been able to figure out why they appeared, said the Spirit Queen apologetically. Long Chun was dumbfounded. Even after tens of thousands of years, they were unable to figure out their goal? He quickly thought of how Pill Valley's experts said that the Dark Forest tree demons were all wooden-headed fools. They weren't very intelligent. It was just that the Spirit Queen looked very wise, so it was unexpected that even she wouldn't know such a thing. That's fine. We can figure that out later. Then tell me, other than their greed for the forest of life, is there anything else that attracts the martial heaven continent's warriors here? Yes. Within the spirit world lies part of the ancient battlefield. Back when the human race was still allied with the spirit world, when devil creatures invaded us, they were suppressed by a sovereign. That battle was extremely intense, and heaven and earth were destroyed. Spatial cracks now litter that region. Rumor has it that countless experts of both the humans and those devil creatures died at that time, and their treasures were left behind. However, the divine might of a sovereign still lingers there, so neither we nor the Dark Forest's tree demons can approach there without being annihilated, said the Spirit Queen. A sovereign's divine might that makes you unable to approach the battlefield? Long Chun was shocked to learn that a sovereign had once fought in the spirit world. Yes, only humans can get close to that area, but I heard that the battlefield is extremely dangerous. Countless adventurers have entered without ever leaving. Sovereigns were legendary existences that dominated anyone in the same realm. Only one sovereign would appear in one generation, so the title of sovereign was synonymous with unrivaled. Rumor had it that the sovereigns were the result of all the world's karmic flow condensing into one person. Only one sovereign could be born in one era, and only when that sovereign fell would it be possible for a second sovereign to be born. So the sovereigns that had risen during previous eras were all figures that had led that era. They were godlike existences. I'll definitely have to go to that battlefield. Perhaps I can get some treasures. A fiery light appeared in Long Chen's eyes. After chatting with the Spirit Queen for a long time, he gained an understanding of the Forest of Life's power. The Forest of Life had 90 million spirit warriors. They possessed such long lifespans that they had to be measured in millennia. The longer they lived, the greater their combat power would be. They had no cultivation base rankings. Instead, it was their age that was used to divide their power. They were split into spirit kings, spirit generals, spirit guards, and spirit soldiers. They could generally be equivalent to the human race's Life Star, Soul Transformation, Jade Core, and Foundation Forging realms. The spirit guard that Long Chen had saved was very powerful amongst spirit guards, which had allowed her to fight so long against Gue Yen. In truth, Gue Yen hadn't been fighting all out at that time. He had intentionally let some spirit warriors escape to draw more reinforcements. His appetite was quite big. The spirit race's warriors would only reach the level of a true spirit soldier when they had reached 200 years of age. Without reaching that age, their combat power would be even lower. The spirit warriors' appearances never changed. They appeared the same as when they had just been born. Other than their own people, no one else could tell them apart. Those who had lived for 200 to 1,000 years were called spirit soldiers, 1,000 to 2,000 were spirit guards, 2,000 to 5,000 were spirit generals, and 5,000 to 10,000 were called spirit kings. When Long Chen heard this, he couldn't help being speechless. These pure and naive ladies had actually lived for so long. However, he supposed since they were the fruit of the life god tree, he could understand it. It was just regretful that the spirit race had taken huge losses to help the human race during the battle of the Immortal era. Then the Dark Forest had come and continuously fought against the spirit race until there were no longer any spirit kings left. There were less than 10,000 spirit generals and about 8 million spirit guards. But not all the spirit guards were as strong as the one Long Chen had encountered. That spirit guard had almost reached the level of a spirit general, which was why she had been able to block Gue Yen. Then there were over 80 million spirit soldiers. However, compared to the Dark Forest, the Forest of Life didn't have the slightest chance of winning. That was because the Dark Forest had finally brought back the heaven-devouring forest they had set up on the Martial Heaven continent in order to raise a group of extremely powerful tree demons. The Martial Heaven continent was different from the spirit world. The Martial Heaven continent was full of strife and slaughter, and tree demons all liked to absorb that air. It was beneficial to their growth. Furthermore, the spirit trees were unable to directly participate in the battle. They could only bestow their power to the spirit warriors and spirit beasts. When they were injured, they would use their own energy to heal them. The tree demons had no such restriction. How long ago did they suddenly get reinforced? Long Chen suddenly thought of something. 3 months and 17 days ago, according to the units of the Martial Heaven continent. What about it? Asked the Spirit Queen upon seeing Long Chen's expression change. Over 3.5 months ago? That's not long after I caused a falling out with Pill Valley. Long Chen gave a simple summary of what he had done in Pill Valley. The Spirit Queen was completely dumbfounded. Long Chen had almost destroyed Pill Valley, as well as provoked a huge fight between them and the Heaven-Devouring Forest, causing the Heaven-Devouring Forest to take heavy losses. The Dark Forest has secret connections to many of the powers of the Martial Heaven continent. So I will make a very brazen guess. Back when the Dark Forest first established spatial channels to spread their roots to the Martial Heaven continent, they made it seem like this was simply the actions of the Dark Forest. But the truth was that they had already received the approval of Pill Valley, the Corrupt Path, the Ancient Races, and the other various powers. That was why they weren't immediately destroyed when they first entered the continent. Once they had established themselves, they began to spread rapidly, blocking off the way from the Eastern Xian region to the Central Xian region. They would occasionally kill experts crossing through them, but due to their secret connections with powers like Pill Valley, they couldn't be eradicated. Because of the Heaven-Devouring Forest, the dark forest's power grows greater and greater at a rapid rate. Most likely, the dark forest doesn't even view the forest of life as an opponent any longer. They simply want to get more benefits from growing in the Marshall Heaven continent. But because of their falling out with Pill Valley, although it looked like they settled things, they are filled with hatred. They view the forest of life as a fat slab of meat, and they're using you as a bargaining chip with the corrupt path, ancient races, and other powers. All these other powers were invited into the spirit world, but I believe only the Pill Valley was rejected. Pill Valley is under great pressure as it is and doesn't have the energy to participate in this matter. Others can enter and get benefits, but Pill Valley can't. This is their way of punishing Pill Valley for the previous battle. That's why, at the very least, our opponents won't include the flame cultivators of Pill Valley. That will make things much easier on us, and I'll be able to come up with certain stratagems for the battle. Do you want to hear my suggestions? Asked Long Chun. Ah! The Spirit Queen stared at him with a lost expression. She apologized. Sorry, what you're talking about is too complicated. I can't really understand. Ah! This time it was Long Chen's turn to be dumbfounded. I apologize. The life forms of the spirit world aren't very intelligent. We mostly act on instinct. I don't really understand your analysis, said the Spirit Queen. Long Chun was speechless. Even the strongest member of the spirit race, the Spirit Queen, couldn't understand something like this. How were they supposed to communicate? Long Chun, we trust you and your intuition. We can sense the feelings inside a person's heart, and I can sense your goodwill for us. For you to come right as we are facing our destruction is the guidance of the Life God. I'm willing to hand over everything to you, said the Spirit Queen. Divine light began to shine from her eyes, and at the same time, ripples came from the Life God tree. The world became enveloped by a sacred light. Do you see? The Life God tree also approves of my decision. Long Chun, you are the savior of the spirit world, said the Spirit Queen. The savior? I can't even save myself. Long Chun bitterly smiled inside. But looking at the Life God tree with its heaven-piercing branches, he suddenly thought of something. Some soil appeared in his hand, and he slowly sprinkled it on the ground. The Spirit Queen stared at him curiously, but she quickly became ecstatic. This is the divine soil possessing the aura of primal chaos. Her voice quivered. Is this useful to the Life God tree? Yes, very. This primal chaos aura can make up for the life energy the Life God tree has spent. The Life God tree used up all its energy giving birth to spirit warriors. If we only had more of this soil. Ah! The Spirit Queen let out a startled cry as Long Chun waved his hand. A mountain of soil appeared, and the aura of primal chaos slowly merged into the ground. This soil came from the primal chaos bead, and Long Chun could bring out as much of this as he wanted. As the primal chaos merged into the ground, the Life God tree began to shine brightly, lighting up the sky. Its withered branches sprouted green buds. The primal chaos bead soil was incredibly effective. However, the Life God tree was so huge that this mountain of soil was absorbed in just a moment, only allowing it to recover slightly. But this was already enough to delight the Spirit Queen. Long Chun summoned more and more soil, piling it up around the Life God tree. The Spirit Queen stared in shock, her hand covering her mouth. The Life God tree was crazily absorbing this soil. As endless life energy began to bloom within it, tears overflowed from the Spirit Queen's eyes. The Life God tree was the protector of the spirit world. It was the highest faith in the spirit world. As for the Spirit Queen, she was the protector of the Life God tree. Her soul was connected to it, so she knew best how quickly it was healing. The Life God tree's exhausted energy was rapidly being replenished. Nothing else could make her so happy. Thank you. The Life God tree has already recovered. The Spirit Queen's voice was choked with emotion. In just a few hours, there was not a single withered branch on the Life God tree. It was overflowing with vitality and had recovered to its peak. Don't worry about it. I can bring out as much of this soil as needed. Since we're in such a crisis, Can I ask if the life god tree can now give birth to more powerful spirit warriors? Asked Long Chun. Do you really have that much of this soil? The spirit queen's voice was quivering. If you really have a limitless amount, then the life god tree can spend a large amount of life energy to give birth to spirit generals. How many can it give birth to in one day? The spirit queen closed her eyes. She was communicating with the life god tree. After a moment, she said, if there is enough of this soil, the life god tree can give birth to 10,000 spirit generals a day. What about spirit kings? No, there's no way to create spirit kings from nothing. They need to grow naturally. Spirit generals are the limit for the life god tree, answered the spirit queen. Long Chin sank into thought. The spirit generals were equivalent to the soul transformation realm, and they were blessed by the life god tree, giving them immense power. However, that still wasn't enough. Back when the heaven-devouring forest had fought against Pill Valley, even Life-Star experts had died. The forest of life's power was still too low. If I can't raise our power fast enough, then I'll need to reduce the opponent's power. Long Chin smiled faintly. He thought of another soil in the primal chaos space, one that devoured life. The primal chaos space's black soil was poison to trees, and the only existence that could survive in it was the heavenly Tao tree. It would be a powerful killing tool in this upcoming battle. Long Chun asked the Spirit Queen when the Dragonblood warriors would awaken. She said that it would take over 10 days. Thinking about it, he had the Spirit Queen gather all the spirit warriors that were fighting on the battlefield. The spirit race clearly didn't understand battle tactics. Continuing like they had been would just make things worse for them. They were basically sending themselves to their enemies. Hence, it was better for them to all return to the Forest of Life and solidify their defenses. Once the spirit warriors retreated, there was no way the corrupt path or the ancient races would dare to attack the Forest of Life. According to the Spirit Queen, the Dark Forest had taken over 90% of the spirit world. Eliminating the Forest of Life was just a matter of time. The only reason the Dark Forest hadn't eliminated them was because they were using the Forest of Life as a gambling chip to cooperate with the Martial Heaven Continent's powers. If the spirit warriors retreated and took a solid defense, the experts that had come from the Martial Heaven Continent wouldn't be able to capture them. That way, there would be nothing they could do to the Forest of Life, and that would force the Dark Forest to launch an attack. However, retreating was still the best option, as it would take some time before the Dark Forest launched their attacks. That was enough time for Long Chun to do many things. Long Chun was grateful that the Spirit Queen acted according to his orders. As soon as she heard his recommendation, she used the Life God Tree's energy to alert all the spirit warriors to fall back. Because they were the fruit of the Life God Tree, there was no need for them to communicate with words. They all came from the same source, and communicating through the Life God Tree was much more convenient than through their mouths. The spirit warriors gathered, and the powerful magical beasts went to guard the border of the Forest of Life. If anyone dared to approach, they would be directly killed. After arranging this, he asked the Spirit Queen for a powerful magical beast to use as a steed, and he stealthily left the Forest of Life. He was searching for something called the World Tree. The World Tree was the most ancient tree species in the spirit world. It was the first kind of tree to exist after the spirit world was formed. First came the World Tree, then came the Forest of Life. According to the Spirit Queen, even the Life God Tree only came later. The World Tree was an extremely miraculous existence. It was said that its longevity was equivalent to this world's. As long as this world didn't die, the World Tree would exist forever. It was the existence with the greatest life energy. Originally, the spirit world had possessed a huge forest of world trees. Unfortunately, they were devoured by the Dark Forest, and there were no longer any world trees in this world. But if he was lucky, he would be able to find the seeds of the world trees. The forest where the world trees had once thrived was his target. He wanted to plant a huge forest of world trees. The primal chaos space would not allow things with their own minds to be planted within it. The branches of the tree demons or the spirit trees would simply turn into life energy when he planted them. He also tried a budding branch from the Life God Tree, but it could not be planted in the primal chaos space. Long Chun had dreamed of planting a forest of life god trees in the primal chaos space. Then he would possess an undying body. But that dream had been destroyed. So he had switched targets to these so-called world trees. It was said that they were also huge and possessed immense life energy. It was due to their immense life energy that they were devoured by the dark forest as nourishment. Because of it, the dark forest had strengthened to the point that they began to overpower the forest of life. When Long Chun heard that, Long Chun couldn't help being speechless. The forest of life's creatures were innately kind. But their heads, Long Chun left behind a huge amount of primal chaos soil for the life god tree. In any case, the primal chaos space was 3 million miles wide. He could bring out as much of this soil as he wanted. The Spirit Queen gave Long Chun a flying magical beast. It was an azure scale blood eagle, an 11th rank magical beast. Its body was covered in azure scales, but its eyes were the color of blood. The azure scale blood eagle was extremely fast, and it brought Long Chun out of the forest of life very quickly. Long Chun saw large swaths of spirit warriors currently retreating to the forest of life. Once they were out of the forest of life, the azure scale blood eagle sped up. In just a day, Long Chun saw a region of space rippling like it was a huge waterfall. Although he was so far away, he could still see the space there twisting. But the instant he looked closely, his hair stood on end. He sensed a terrifying pressure. This is the ancient battlefield? Long Chun was deeply shaken. Even from this distance, it gave off such a terrifying pressure. It was worthy of being a place a sovereign had once fought. Primal chaos raged in this location, and the laws of heaven and earth were constantly being torn to shreds. There was no way for this part of the world to heal. A battle from tens of thousands of years ago had left such scars even after so much time. A sovereign was truly an untouchable existence. First, get the world trees. Then I'll come back and see what I can do here. Long Chun felt a blazing desire as he looked at this distant space. Perhaps he would be able to obtain something from that place. The azure scale blood eagle continued flying. This battlefield was so huge that even with its speed, it took a full day before he saw a dark forest. Many thanks. You can go back. Long Chun jumped off quite some distance from the dark forest. He went off on his own. Magical beasts possessed powerful life auras and would be easily sensed. As soon as Long Chun entered this forest, he felt unnatural. If the forest of life was like a pure spring, then the dark forest was like muddy sewer water. He suppressed his aura, as this forest was filled with countless powerful tree demons. They were normally sleeping and looked like ordinary huge trees, but once they were woken, they would attack. He definitely didn't want to wake them, and so he carefully advanced. After 2 days, he reached a mountain valley. A smile appeared on his face. He had reached his target. The place where the 2 mountains met to form the valley was precisely where the forest of world trees had once been. But this mountain valley was so huge that it took him 4 hours to arrive at the end of it. He was greeted by a huge mountain. When he jumped to the crown of a tall tree and looked into the distance, he gasped. This was a cemetery for trees. Countless giant trees were lying on the ground. The trees were so huge that there was no way to see their end. The roots of tree demons were piercing them, like they were fallen trees with mushrooms growing out of them. These tree demons were many miles tall, but when compared to the fallen trees, they looked wholly insignificant. This cemetery of fallen trees gave Long Chun a chill. Although he had been prepared, he hadn't expected them to be so giant. There was no doubt that these fallen trees had to be world trees. He went over to one of the world trees. Touching the trunk, he shook his head. This world tree's life energy had already been sucked dry. The inside was completely rotten. Long Chun continued to go deeper. The world trees were hundreds of miles long, but unfortunately, even their buds were corroded and dead. There was no fruit or seed for him. He even checked the surrounding ground, but he didn't find anything. After a couple of hours, Long Chun's heart was cold. So much time had passed since these world trees had died. They didn't have the slightest trace of life within them. Even the primal chaos space couldn't revive them. Even a withered branch, as long as it possessed the slightest bit of life energy, could be revived by the primal chaos space. Unfortunately, there wasn't even the slightest bit of life here. However, Long Chun was still unwilling to leave things as they were. He expanded his search. Finding world trees was crucial to him. "This damn dark forest," cursed Long Chun. He had found a fruit of the world tree. It was a 30-meter sphere with a hard shell. Yet, roots had still pierced its body and extracted all its life essence. In other words, this fruit was also garbage. In his fury, Long Chun summoned a batch of flames that incinerated these tree demons. Clearly, these tree demons had already sucked away everything from these world trees. Right now, he was hoping to find just a single seed. But he didn't feel much hope anymore. Despite how infuriated he was, he had to continue searching. Although his chances were low, he had to go through this entire forest. Just as his heart was ice cold, he saw over 10 huge trees in the distance. They couldn't be, right? Long Chun rubbed his eyes, thinking they were broken. Those giant trees were definitely world trees. Although they were withered, they hadn't collapsed. His heart began to pound. As long as they hadn't collapsed, perhaps they still possessed the slightest bit of life. Long Chun hastily rushed over. He saw that there were 18 world trees in a ring. His heart was pounding harder and harder. He saw 2 of the world trees had lots of fruit growing on them. That meant there was a very high chance they still had some life. However, just as he was rushing over, a sense of alarm washed over him. He immediately stopped. He saw a willow tree in the middle of the world trees. The willow tree was just 3,000 meters tall. In front of the world trees, it was absolutely minuscule. The main trunk of the willow was covered in scales that emitted an ancient air. Its leaves looked like the hair of a young woman. When the breeze blew by, the leaves lit up with divine light. But that light also hid a fierce killing intent that made Long Chun's hair raise. It has actually monopolized these 18 world trees. Long Chun couldn't help being shocked as he noticed the strange roots coming out of the willow. Long Chun noticed that the strange willow had 18 roots growing out of it, connecting it to the world trees like chains. It was absorbing the energy of the 18 world trees. The thing that shocked him the most was that while the willow's branches swayed gently in the wind, making it seem weak, the willow still made him feel an immense sense of danger. He stealthily approached one of the world trees from a safe angle. Making sure to stay out of view of the willow, he began to climb up a world tree like a lizard. His aura was completely hidden. As he climbed higher and higher, he eventually broke past the clouds. From here, it was even possible to see that distant battlefield. He stealthily plucked one of the world tree seeds and tossed it into the primal chaos space. His heart was thudding loudly in his ears. The seed landed in the primal chaos bead's soil. But there was no change. Is this seed out of energy too? Long Chun couldn't help being disappointed. Usually, seeds would immediately start to germinate as soon as they were tossed into the primal chaos space. But even after a minute had passed, there wasn't the slightest movement. Crack. Just as he gave up hope, a light sound came from the seed. It slowly split apart. Roots dug their way into the ground like small tentacles. The seed split in 2, revealing a small shoot. Long Chun laughed delightedly. But just as he laughed, iciness washed over him. A green branch on top of the world tree suddenly shot toward him. It was the branch of a willow with the thickness of a chopstick. Green leaves covered it, flowing with divine light. Long Chun smelled the scent of death coming for it. He directly summoned the divine ring, and 5 stars appeared in his eyes. He slashed his sword at the branch. Boom! Shockingly, his powerful attack was unable to sever that tiny branch. The world rock, and the world tree's buds and seeds began to fall. Long Chun waved his hand, collecting those seeds. Countless willow branches came out of the world tree. It was like the withered world tree had given birth to new life. But those willow branches did not belong to the world tree. In just a moment, the world tree was covered in willow branches. They shot toward Long Chun. Split the heavens for! Long Chun slashed his sword, unleashing a huge sword image. But shockingly, these willow branches were too strong, and only a small portion of them broke. The majority were completely unharmed. These willow branches looked weak, but they were extremely tough. When his attack landed, those seemingly delicate leaves would lit up and repel a large portion of his power. It was like his slash landed on cotton and couldn't cause any significant damage. Suddenly, the willow leaves lit up. A murderous aura rose as a mass of leaves shot at Long Chun. The willow leaves looked weak and light, but they possessed a terrifying destructive power as they tore through space. The willow leaves were like a sea that completely filled the world. Millions of sharp leaf blades were piercing toward him. Long Chun was appalled. He hastily summoned the green dragon battle armor and slashed his sword down again. Boom! An opening appeared in the sea of leaves, but Long Chun was only able to break the ones in front of him. The leaves surrounding him had already lacerated his body. They were so sharp that not even his dragon scales could block them. In some places he was cut to the bone. Long Chun charged through the opening he had created. Having disturbed that strange willow below him, he had fallen into desperate straits. It was truly a case of great joy being followed by a terrible tragedy. Piercing his way out of the sea of leaves, he sucked in a cold gasp when he saw what was outside. Millions of willow branches had formed layers of nets around this region, completely trapping him. Raging flames devour the heavens. Golden flames suddenly erupted from Long Chun, enveloping the willow branches, instantly igniting them. This world became a sea of golden flames. The leaves were incinerated, but the branches were protected and blocked the heaven-incinerating flame. Boom! Although they managed to resist the heaven-incinerating flame, their defensive power sharply dropped. Long Chun slashed open a large opening for himself. Long Chun joyfully flew out. At the same time, he tossed out a flame sphere behind him. Without looking at the results, he fled. The flame sphere exploded, enveloping this region of the dark forest. Long Chun fled. He had instantly disturbed countless slumbering tree demons. He couldn't bother sneaking around any longer, and he directly summoned Huolong, charging his way through. Those tree demons dodged his path, but Long Chun continuously tossed out flame spheres, spreading the flames. The dark forest was a complete mess. The tree demons were panicked, and some were running around, igniting other tree demons. Long Chun simply rushed away without looking back. That terrifying willow wasn't chasing him, at least. That willow was too strange. He had never seen such a terrifying existence. Without the heaven-incinerating flame, he might have died. Thinking of that, he felt a burst of lingering fear. It seemed he had underestimated the dark forest. Long Chun fled away. From the air, it looked like a flame dragon was spreading a sea of flames within a forest. He quickly reached the end of the dark forest. After putting away Huolong, lightning wings appeared on his back, and he shot away. He had only just escaped when several terrifying auras rose within the depths of the dark forest. He had clearly disturbed the dark forest's powerful existences, but he had already escaped. As for the flames he had left behind, they incinerated a large mass of trees. Those powerful experts had to personally extinguish those flames, or they would spread until the entire dark forest was gone. Long Chun continued fleeing for several hours. When he felt like he was far enough, he finally took a break. Those willow leaves are strange. Long Chun's injuries were currently bleeding a mix of blood and some black liquid. It wasn't poison. It seemed more similar to a curse that was constantly worsening his injury, making it so he couldn't heal. He was covered in injuries, and he consumed 2 healing pills to temporarily suppress them. His 108,000 stars began to circulate to assist in the healing, forcing out that bizarre energy. As the 9-star Hegemon body art circulated, more and more of that black liquid was expelled. After 2 hours, the black liquid was gone, and his injuries began to automatically heal. What strange energy! If an ordinary person was struck by one willow leaf, they would probably lose their life. Long Chun smacked his lips. Ordinary Jade Core experts would be unable to expel this curse energy. This power was even more terrifying than poison. During the battle, if a person couldn't heal their injuries and had no time to expel this curse, it would gravely affect their combat power. The thing that amazed him the most was that he hadn't even seen the willow's main body attack. It had only attacked him through the body of the world tree. If it had been the main body attacking, its power would have been even more terrifying. As for Long Chen's own attacks, they were unable to cause any substantial damage to it. But why had it not chased after him? He couldn't quite figure it out. He looked inside the primal chaos space where hundreds of world trees had started budding. But even after all this time, their shoots were only 3 meters tall. They weren't even as tall as the original seeds. They only had 2 small leaves, and their bodies were somewhat translucent, growing extremely slow. Right now, these soft shoots were too weak for him to split up into more trees. This really is too slow. Long Chen circulated the primal chaos space, urging on the growth of the world trees. But he practically couldn't see any change. Ordinary trees would grow several meters in just a few breaths' time. But considering the size of the world trees he had seen, he understood that having these soft shoots grow to such a size would definitely be a slow process. How regretful! I should have thrown in some tree demons to turn into life energy. Whether it was the bodies of magical beasts or tree demons, once they were tossed into the black soil, they would transform into life energy that would be absorbed by the plants in the primal chaos space. However, feeling regret was too late now. He definitely didn't dare to go back to the dark forest. If he encountered that willow again, it'd be troublesome. But what would be even worse was encountering those terrifying existences he had sensed just now. Other than this, his heaven-incinerating flame had been exposed. He would need to come up with some excuse to cover this up, or if he exposed that he was Longsan, he would be done for. After resting and feeling like he had recovered to his peak state, he looked around and went straight toward the ancient battlefield. The ancient battlefield. It was a very vague name. This was a place where supreme experts had once fought. Back when the spirit world was still allied with the martial heaven continent, when devils had invaded the spirit world and been about to annihilate the spirit race with the intent of eliminating one of the martial heaven continent's helpers, a sovereign of the human race had led an army of experts to provide assistance. An immense battle had been fought here. The core of the battlefield was where the sovereign had fought the devils. The laws of this region had been destroyed, causing spatial cracks to constantly appear for moments. Even after tens of thousands of years, the pressure of the sovereign's fighting remained. Long Chen arrived at the edge of the battlefield where the space was constantly twisting. A powerful tearing force was present, capable of ripping steel apart. This is the power of a sovereign? The sovereign blood seal was like this, and now this battlefield is the same. Just what kind of existence is a sovereign? Wondered Long Chen as he sensed the intense fluctuations in space. He slowly walked deeper into the battlefield. The spatial twisting grew worse. A few miles in, the space beside him suddenly tore apart, and it was like a huge mouth wanting to devour him. If he didn't react fast enough and instinctively dodge, he would have been drawn into the chaotic flow of space. No matter how strong he was, he'd still die from that. His face turned pale. The danger had come so suddenly. To be killed by some random spatial tear would be too sullen of a death. He continued walking deeper, advancing slowly like he was walking through cold water. The spatial fluctuations grew more intense. Fortunately, after traveling for a while, he was able to tell that when a spatial tear was about to form, the surrounding space would turn static for a half a breath's time. By keeping watch of that pattern, he managed to effectively avoid the spatial tears. After several hours, he passed through this unsteady space. What he stepped into was a desolate battlefield filled with the stench of blood. He knelt and looked at a blood-stained stone. The blood had already dried up, but its color was as bright as if it was fresh. It also still contained some pressure. Even after all this time, it still retains this pressure. Just how terrifying was the cultivation base of the owner of this blood? Crack. Long Chen stepped on an old bone. It was 3 inches long. When he stepped on it, it didn't break. Instead, a rock beside it broke from having the bone pressed down on it. Even a random bone possesses hardness comparable to king items. Long Chen couldn't help being shocked. This bone was very strange. There were many holes in it like it was porous, and it was practically weightless when he held it. It definitely wasn't the bone of a normal human. He quickly saw a skeleton. That skeleton was 30 meters long and broken. His head and limbs had vanished. He took a look and saw that some places showed signs that they had been broken recently. Someone must have come and taken those pieces away. This is the outer region. The good stuff must have already been taken away. I should go deeper and see if I can dredge up anything useful. Long Chen no longer had much hope for his luck. But he was quite the expert at snatching other people's treasures. Continuing forward, he once more reached a place where space was unstable. A huge abyss appeared in front of him when he exited. When he flew over the abyss, he realized it was a giant footprint. A single footprint was dozens of miles long and had broken the spatial laws around it. Even now, the spatial laws were broken as they tried to repair themselves. After crossing the abyss, a scorching air came from ahead. He quickly saw a blazing river of lava. The lava emitted fierce heat, and he saw dozens of figures roving over the lava. Those figures were from the corrupt path, the ancient races, and there were two people wearing the robes of the ancient family's disciples. Suddenly, one of the ancient race experts smashed a fist into the lava river. Its surface blew back, and within that opening was a fist-sized crystal. The ancient race expert snatched it. "There are divine flame crystals here?" Long Chen was surprised. He hadn't expected divine flame crystals to appear here, but he wasn't moved by them. According to Tyr, these divine flame crystals were just low-grade. The amount of flame energy contained within them was very limited, and it wasn't very pure. He had obtained divine flame crystals as large as human heads in the Heaven Dragon Flame region, and they were definitely top-grade. Even if you were to give these low-grade crystals to him, he wouldn't want them. But this wide, bottomless river of lava gave him an idea. There were quite a few people fishing for divine flame crystals here. Long Chen might not care about them, but they were extremely rare treasures to others. The divine flame crystals were hidden within the flow of lava. Fishing them out wasn't difficult. The difficult part lay in finding them. They had to send their divine sense into the lava to search for signs of the crystals, and that was very taxing to one's spiritual strength. They couldn't keep this up for too long. One of the corrupt experts smashed the lava river and smoothly took out another crystal. However, just as he took the crystal, he suddenly noticed a golden figure within the lava. He didn't see its complete body as it was covered by the lava. A treasure! The corrupt expert was delighted, and without hesitation, he summoned his heavenly Tao manifestation. He was a rank 6 celestial, and a large hand reached into the lava. Summoning his manifestation immediately drew everyone else's attention. Just what was going on? Was he attempting to gather the crystals en masse? The hand reached into the lava. It pulled out a 50-meter golden flame dragon, startling everyone. What is that? The flame dragon acted like a fish that had been happily swimming before it had been fished out. It let out a furious roar, and golden flames filled the world. Heavens! It's an earth flame spirit beast. No, this flame can incinerate heavenly Tao runes. It has to be the legendary heaven incinerating flame ranked 3rd on the earth flame rankings. Run! A startled cry suddenly came from someone. Idiot, why would we run? This earth flame spirit beast is a priceless treasure, and it's still in a young state. We should capture it. As soon as that person said it was the heaven incinerating flame, several people's eyes turned green with greed. That was a legendary existence. Something that would make flame cultivators insane with desire. Most importantly, this earth flame spirit beast had just been born, and its combat power wasn't very high. They had a high chance of subduing it. Ah! Suddenly, a miserable scream rang out. The expert who had pulled out the flame dragon was suddenly enveloped by a wave of dragon breath. He was instantly set ablaze, even his heavenly Tao runes burning. The more he resisted, the more he burned. In just a few breaths, that rank 6 celestial who had been at the mid-jade core realm was incinerated. Even his soul was burned to nothing. The others were all startled, as well as delighted. That corrupt expert had used his own life to prove that this earth flame spirit beast was definitely the legendary heaven incinerating flame. It was a priceless treasure. The flame dragon was about to enter the lava river again when an expert launched an attack. A ray of light struck the flame dragon's body. This attack infuriated the flame dragon. It let out a heaven-shaking roar and attacked that person. Everyone, don't be afraid. If we attack together using long-distance attacks, it will be helpless. We just have to exhaust it. Earth flame spirit beasts are dumb, and it won't flee. Once we exhaust its energy, we'll be able to capture it easily. The ancient race expert who had attacked it flew into the air, dodging the flame dragon's attack. He took out a bow. Just as the flame dragon chased after the ancient race expert, a corrupt expert launched a wave of sword chi. The flame dragon was struck and became infuriated. It switched targets to the corrupt expert. Seeing that the flame dragon was truly mindless, everyone relaxed slightly. They surrounded and attacked the flame dragon carefully. At the same time, they stealthily sent the call for reinforcements from their own respective parties. They knew that they would at most be able to trap this earth flame spirit beast. It was impossible for them to subdue it. The powers that had entered the spirit world all had secret communication methods, so that they would be able to assist their own side if they found treasures or encountered powerful enemies. All they had to do was keep this earth flame spirit beast here. As for which power would manage to send a real expert here first to subdue it, it would be up to luck. Once the call for reinforcements went out, more and more experts began rushing over here. As for Long Chun, he was hiding in the cliff beside the lava river. He watched them attack the flame dragon like they were putting on a monkey show. That earth flame spirit beast was just one of Huolong's split bodies. Long Chun was using this split body as bait. He had exposed the heaven incinerating flame in order to get away from that terrifying willow. So he had to find a way to prove that he had obtained the heaven incinerating flame himself, and that it had nothing to do with Long San. The chance to do so had now come. In a bit, as long as he went out and subdued the flame dragon in front of everyone, he would be able to wield the heaven incinerating flame openly. Although there was some time difference, which would normally be a fatal flaw, he didn't mind. That was because there was almost no concept of time within the spirit world. And most importantly, the dark forest tree demons were truly wood-brained. It would be very difficult for them to prove anything. So this normally fatal flaw wasn't even a flaw in the dark forest. Damn. So I really got a big fish? Long Chun was calmly watching the monkey show when he got a nice surprise. He saw a familiar figure rushing over. That person was Long Chen's old friend, Gue Yen. When Gue Yen saw the flame dragon, his eyes turned green with greed. In his last defeat to Long Chun, Gue Yan's Ghost King had been destroyed. Although he had managed to use the lives of the spirit warriors to save his life, losing his Ghost King had caused his total power to drop by over 50%. He had been forced to become much more low-key. After his second defeat, he had rested for a bit before entering the ancient battlefield. He had only just entered a short time ago, and due to losing his Ghost King, he had been forced to travel carefully. As a result, he just so happened to be nearby when these corrupt experts sent the call for reinforcements, and he immediately rushed over. When he saw that flame dragon, his heart pounded wildly. The heaven incinerating flame could be exchanged for enough resources to build 3 Ghost Kings if he wanted. Once that happened, would anyone else be a match for him within the same realm? Underworld Soul Lock Curse. Gue Yen immediately began to chant a curse. His 9-flower manifestation appeared behind him, and a black chain shot out of each flower. The chain was not metal. It was condensed of heavenly Tao energy. It represented a kind of law. The 9 chains bound the flame dragon. No matter how it struggled, it couldn't escape. As for the 9 chains, they were ignited by the heaven incinerating flame, but they didn't break. Ha! Get in here. Gue Yen laughed, and his chains pulled back, drawing the flame dragon towards him. An ancient jar appeared in his hand. This jar was formed from a skull. It was unknown what level this treasure was. Just as the flame dragon was about to be pulled into the jar, a trident slammed down, and a large figure appeared. It was an ancient race expert with 2 wings and a beak instead of a mouth. His hands were like claws. Heaven and earth shook as this ancient race expert attacked Gue Yin. The 9 flowers manifest, the heavenly Tao's manifestation appeared behind him, and a sea of heavenly Tao runes raged around him. Leave behind the heaven incinerating flame and I'll spare your life. The ancient race expert was extremely domineering, and he directly attacked, not giving a damn about Gue Yin. Bastard, you want to break the agreement? Raged Gue Yin. He couldn't bother with the heaven incinerating flame. Blood-red runes lit up on the bone jar, and it grew larger, smashing towards the ancient race expert. Boom! The trident and jar collided, unleashing blinding light and astral winds. The other experts who had already retreated were still sent flying, coughing up blood. Heavens! They're already using ancestral items. Those experts were shocked. Was a battle really about to erupt here? Considering how enticing the heaven incinerating flame was, it seemed that whatever their agreement was, it had no power to stop them. Agreement? What a joke. We were invited by the dark forest. The ancient races simply need to provide assistance when the dark forest requests it. But right now, everyone's just searching for their own opportunities. So don't tell me a joke about how you were the first to see the treasure. The cultivation world's treasures belong to the strong. And as for you, Gue Yin, if you're smart, you'll scram right now. Otherwise, this day next year will be the anniversary of your death, sneered the ancient race expert. He once more attacked. He had to obtain the heaven incinerating flame. Boom! Gue Yin's bone jar was sent flying. This bone jar was a special item capable of refining flesh and blood, as well as souls. But it wasn't a fighting ancestral item. Gue Yin was sent flying, and the chains binding the flame dragon shattered. The flame dragon regained its freedom. Gue Yin's rage soared. If his ghost king hadn't been destroyed by Long Chun, he wouldn't be at such a disadvantage. The heaven incinerating flame is mine. The ancient race expert reached out his hand. Long Chun couldn't help sneering inside. This was just one of Huolong's split bodies. If its real body was there, it would turn him into a cooked chicken. That flame dragon was just one of Huolong's 36 split bodies. To make these people feel like they had a chance at winning, it only possessed 1/36 of Huolong's true power. That was why even the ordinary experts had dared to take the risk. After all, the heaven incinerating flame was too alluring. The trident-wielding expert's hand transformed into a huge claw image that reached towards Huolong. Yours? It's a bit early to say that. A disdainful snort rang out, and sword chi slashed down. Blinding light made everyone turn away. The attack had come from behind the ancient race expert. The ancient race expert simply snorted and swung his trident behind him without even looking. What shocked the ancient race expert was that this sword chi contained a very heavy power. His trident was actually unable to resolve the mountain-like power behind the sword chi, and he was sent flying. The most embarrassing thing was that his hand was set ablaze because he had already touched the flame dragon. Because of the sudden attack, he had to circulate his energy several times to his arm to extinguish the flames. Only a rank 9 celestial could possibly use their immense heavenly Tao energy to extinguish the heaven incinerating flame. This wasn't to say that the heaven incinerating flame wasn't strong enough, but simply that Huolong was still in the midst of growing stronger, and couldn't unleash the full power of the heaven incinerating flame. Otherwise, the heaven incinerating flame wouldn't make countless people crazy for it. A man wearing a sword stepped out from the air. His appearance was extremely ordinary. Only his eyes were shocking. Sharp, golden light shot out of them, making it so others couldn't look directly at them. This man was wearing the robes of the ancient family alliance. He also had the manifestation of a rank 9 celestial behind him. Your right treasures belong to the strong. There's no need to say anything useless. Let's use our strength to speak, said the sword-wielding man. The flame dragon didn't seem to recognize its situation, and it suddenly let out a roar. It charged at the ancient race expert. This fortune came so suddenly that even he was surprised. He quickly reached out to grab it. Although the flame dragon was sending itself to him, and he moved quickly, Guiyen and the ancient family expert both attacked. Sword Chi slashed towards him along with a bone jar. "Humph, you want to block me? Keep dreaming." The ancient race expert sneered and let go of his trident. He spat a mouthful of blood onto it. The trident instantly grew larger. A vast and ancient aura seeped out of it. Not good. Seeing the ancient race expert actually sacrifice his essence blood to use his trident, Guiyen and the ancient family expert's expression sank. Boom! Guiyen's bone jar was sent flying, while the ancient family expert had to use his sword to block. The trident-wielding ancient race expert also suffered a recoil. He hacked up blood as he flew back. But his expression was ecstatic, as he had caught the flame dragon in one of his hands. This hand was now covered in scales, and runes sparkled on the scales. They possessed a spatial energy. The flame dragon shrank to become only a foot long in his hand, and despite how it struggled, it couldn't escape. The ancient race expert laughed delightedly. He was just about to put it away. This flame dragon's power was much lower than the golden phoenix that Long Chun had encountered back then. As long as someone possessed an ancestral item, they would be able to suppress it. Furthermore, back then, Long Chun had only been at the peak of foundation forging. It had naturally been much more difficult for him to fight the heaven-incinerating flame. These experts were at the mid-Jade Core realm. The ancient race expert in particular was on the verge of stepping into the late Jade Core realm. Subduing the flame dragon wasn't that difficult for him. Guiyen and the ancient family expert were disappointed and angered, but there was no time for them to attack again. They could only watch as he put away the flame dragon. The most hateful thing was how the ancient race expert held the flame dragon. He raised the hand holding it high into the air as if showing off his victory, mocking them. Snick. Suddenly, a strange light flashed through the air. There was no sound or change in the air. People were only vaguely able to see a minute streak of light appear. Then they were shocked to see the ancient race expert's hand fly into the air. His hand had been caught off at the wrist, and the flame dragon instantly regained its original size. It let out a heaven-shaking roar. This occurred out of nowhere, and so suddenly that no one was able to react. A figure seemed to appear out of midair. That person waved his hand, and a golden net wrapped around the flame dragon. Blood kill Hall bastard, die. At this moment, Guiyen, the ancient race expert, and the ancient family expert all let out furious roars and attacked. This person was also Long Chen's old friend, one of the Bloodkill Hall's top assassins, Bloodkill 9. Bloodkill 9 had instantly severed the ancient race expert's wrist and snatched the flame dragon. Seeing the three experts in front of him attack at the same time, his expression was calm. As he pulled in the golden net, a white tortoise shell appeared in front of him. It immediately grew larger and began to rapidly spin. White light shot out of it, protecting him. "That bastard! Go all out and break his damn tortoise shell!" roared the ancient race expert. He once more coughed up blood onto his trident. Guiyen and the ancient family expert both attacked. But what startled them was that when their weapons landed on the shell, some mysterious energy canceled out their blows. Ripples appeared on the shell, but it didn't break, nor was it blown back. Just as Bloodkill 9 was about to succeed in putting away the flame dragon, a fiery red sword stabbed through his back and out his chest. Just as Bloodkill 9 was pulling in the fully trapped flame dragon and blocking the attacks of the other three with his white tortoise shell, a fiery red sword stabbed through his back, piercing out of his chest. That fiery red sword possessed terrifying power. As long as the sword's master willed it, Bloodkill 9 would be blown apart. A hand received the net. The flame dragon and the net vanished from everyone's sight. For a moment, everyone was silent. The white shell shrank and suddenly vanished. At this critical time, it abandoned its master. Guiyen, the ancient family expert, and the ancient race expert all stared in shock at the figure behind Bloodkill 9. As soon as that sword had stabbed through his body, Bloodkill 9's life no longer belonged to himself. His expression was calm as he looked at that sword. He said, "What precise calculations? You really are suited to join my Bloodkill Hall." "Thanks, but I don't think so. I don't like being brainwashed." Nor do I like being a soulless executioner. Long Chen shook his head. You can kill me, but don't blaspheme my faith. Bloodkill 9's voice contained some fury. I have no interest in blaspheming your faith. I'm not so bored. Do you still remember what I said in front of the Shentian Dao sect? Since you view death as returning to the embrace of your killing god, I'll send you to see him. I'll do it now, but don't worry, you aren't the first, and you won't be the last, said Long Chen indifferently. He didn't feel the slightest sympathy for the Bloodkill Hall's assassins. He scoffed at these extremist believers. They thought that everyone in this world had sins, and so killing those sinners was simply right. That was no need to even mention the enmity between the Bloodkill Hall and himself. Their enmity had reached the point of no rest until death. So Long Chen naturally wouldn't be merciful. I just have one request. Can you let me die in a more dignified way? After all, I stand at the peak of my craft, sighed Bloodkill 9. No. You. Let me ask you, how many people have you killed? Did you ever think about their feelings when you killed them? When you cut off their heads? Did you ever think of leaving them some dignity? Long Chen scoffed at this. Bloodkill 9 clearly wanted a chance to commit suicide, but Long Chen wouldn't let him. That's different. They're sinners, raged Bloodkill 9. Sinners? Who determined their sins? Your so-called killing god? You're just scum that stands at a slightly higher position and criticizes other people's morals. You think you can stand in the same position as your god and look down on others, telling people they should die and then killing them? When I reach the same height as your killing god, I'll call your killing god a sinner and kill him as well, said Long Chen disdainfully. Bastard, you dare to blaspheme a god? You dash. It's about time for you to get going. Tell your crap to your god. Long Chen unleashed his power through his sword, and lightning runes lit up. Bloodkill 9 was blown to pieces, and the Thunder Force destroyed his soul as well. Bloodkill 9 died without a corpse. Let alone dying with some dignity, he died without leaving anything behind. Killing a rank 9 celestial really is difficult. Long Chen swung his sword, sighing emotionally. This was his third encounter with Bloodkill 9. Now, he had finally killed him, but a large part of that was also due to luck. If it had been a head-on fight, killing Bloodkill 9 would have been supremely difficult. That shell ancestral item of his was too strange. Thank you all for your offering. I will kindly accept this heaven-incinerating flame. You can leave now. Long Chen smiled. Starting today, he would be able to openly use his heaven-incinerating flame. Long Chen, I've heard of your name. But if you think killing an assassin means you can be arrogant, you're wrong, said the ancient family expert coldly. Gue Yen, the ancient race expert, and the ancient family expert surrounded Long Chen. That wasn't just because he had the heaven-incinerating flame. Long Chen was the mortal enemy of their three powers. There was no need to say anything about the corrupt path and the ancient races. But as for the ancient family alliance, originally there hadn't been much enmity between them. Their enmity had grown strong when Long Chen had killed Luo Mingho. Killing a top genius of the ancient family alliance was a huge slap in their faces. Although they didn't make any moves on the surface, they had secretly begun making their preparations. Now that they saw him, even Gue Yen thought that this was an extremely good chance to kill Long Chen. By working together, the three of them should have a high chance of killing him. Although Long Chen had just killed Bloodkill 9, that had just been a sneak attack. The fact that he had managed to kill him was also thanks to the three of them. Without the flame dragon drawing attention, without the three of them attacking, without the whole constructed situation, Long Chen wouldn't have been able to kill Bloodkill 9 in one attack. That kind of perfect sneak attack couldn't be replicated. In other words, it was just a coincidence, so the three of them were not afraid at all. On the contrary, their battle intent soared. Long Chen looked at the ancient family alliance's expert with a sword sheathed on his back and the light shooting out of his eyes. He indifferently said, "Don't think that I'm fooled by your act. You are not a sword cultivator, so that little play of yours is useless on me. I want to ask, why is that you want to target me when that fellow Ammonian has already caused a huge uproar in your ancient family alliance and you're not even able to handle him? In truth, Long Chun was just saying this to see if he could dredge up some information about Emonien's whereabouts. And as expected, as soon as he mentioned Emonien, this expert's expression became extremely unsightly. It was like flames were about to shoot from his eyes. Emonien's nothing. The Emo family is scum that was kicked out of the ancient family alliance. As for Emonien, he only knows how to do shameless, shady business. If he was a real man, he would have come out and fought openly. Haha, what a joke. Your entire ancient family alliance is unable to do a single thing to Emonien. Unable to capture him, you mock him for running, sneered Long Chun. Long Chun relaxed inside. It seemed Emonien had had some kind of fortuitous encounter that allowed his cultivation base to advance rapidly. Just from this fellow's furious expression, it was clear that Emonien had done something to infuriate the entire ancient family alliance. To be able to survive after infuriating the entire ancient family alliance meant that Emonien was definitely remarkable. When Long Chun thought about it, he supposed that was only natural. That fellow might put on a heroic appearance, but in truth, he was a scoundrel filled with evil thoughts. Humph, Emonien is brute, a half-breed human scum. He didn't dare to face us, so he dug up the graves of our ancestors. What kind of human would do something like that? Roared the ancient family expert, his eyes starting to turn red. From that, Long Chun guessed that his ancestor's grave had also been dug up by Emonien. Long Chun couldn't help being dumbfounded. That little fellow Emonien had executed such a stimulating and irritating plot. Long Chun himself had never thought of something like that, so he prostrated himself in admiration to Emonien. On the other side of the coin, Long Chun knew what kind of person Emonien was. He knew how to act as a person, and unless the other side had done something extremely heinous, he wouldn't do something so immoral. Since he had, it meant that they had been even more immoral. To uphold justice, Emonien dug up their ancestors' graves. This was their punishment for not properly raising their descendants. Cough. Let me express my sympathy for what you've encountered. I offer my most sincere respect for your ancestors. I hope you can get through your grief. You shouldn't feel bad. Going out and soaking in the sunshine isn't a bad thing. It's very good for bone development. Die! The ancient family expert couldn't hold back any longer, and he attacked, his sword slashing toward Long Chun. His power was instantly raised to its peak, and Long Chun felt the space around him solidify. This was not a feeling. The space was truly frozen. I said that your sword was just a fake. You're actually an earth cultivator. You draw other people's attention with your sword, and then use a spatial force field to lock them down. If all goes according to the plan, you will then kill them in one blow. But do you think other people are children? Long Chun sneered and his divine ring appeared, shattering the space around like glass. 5 stars appeared in his eyes, and his sword met the ancient family expert's sword. What surprised others was that when they clashed, there was no eruption of power. Just at this moment, a trident whistled over toward Long Chun's waist. The trident-wielding ancient race expert's manifestation was in full bloom. Heavenly Tao energy raged around him, boosting the power of his trident. Boom! Long Chun first blocked the attack of the ancient family expert, and then his sword slashed towards the ancient race expert's trident. People were shocked to see this. According to reason, having already blocked the ancient family expert's sword, his sword shouldn't have enough power to immediately block the trident. But when the sword and trident met, blinding light erupted. The ancient race expert let out a muffled snort and was blown back. Long Chun spun, smashing his fist behind him. Guiyan's bone jar was also blown back. In an instant, he forced back 3 peak experts. The distant spectators were all shocked. Is Long Chun trying to defy the heavens? First he killed Bloodkill 9 in one blow, and now he's even able to hold his own against the 3 of them. Those 3 were rank 9 celestials. They were at the peak of all celestials. When they used their manifestations, rank 8 celestials and below would only be able to submit. In fact, under the pressure of all 3 of their manifestations, even a rank 9 celestial would be hard-pressed. And yet, Long Chen's divine ring was completely forcing back the might of the heavenly Daos. With this divine ring, heaven and earth couldn't bind him. I already said that your little trick was useless in front of me. Now do you believe me? Asked Long Chen indifferently. You borrowed my power? Raged the ancient family expert. You merged the heaviness of earth with the agility of the sword. This kind of thinking isn't bad, but with your brains, there's no way you would be able to truly create something like that. Although it looks like you now possess great offense and defense, as if you can switch between heaviness and lightness at will, the truth is that when you switch, your power leaks out, and you're basically giving it to your opponent. This world is full of people who think themselves clever. But I'm sure that if you weren't from the ancient family alliance, you'd have long since lost your life. Long Chen shook his head. He was an earth cultivator who, instead of using a heavy weapon, decided to take an alternative path. Unless he was truly a peerless genius, such an unorthodox style would only cause his combat power to drop. And this person was not a person capable of blazing such an alternative path. Bullshit. Who do you think you are? You couldn't possibly understand the principles between blending yin and yang, roared the ancient race expert, unable to accept that Long Chen would scoff at this self-created style. Heavy earth slash. Having summoned this golden giant, the ancient race expert attacked again. The giant's golden sword slashed towards Long Chen. The golden sword whistled towards Long Chen, cutting apart space like it was a screen of water. Long Chen snorted, but he suddenly felt the space around him solidify. His expression changed slightly as the ground beneath him suddenly sank. Idiot! This is the gravity domain of my golden battle general. All your movements will be slowed down here. The ancient family expert sneered at Long Chen from his golden giant's head. Boom! The golden sword slammed down where Long Chen was. But everyone was shocked to find that there was no explosion. Instead, the ground sank once more, and even the river of lava was cut off. The ground in a 1,000-mile diameter had turned a golden color. The golden giant seemed to be one with the entire earth. This level of gravity can't threaten me. This little bit of power is simply insufficient. Long Chen suddenly slashed his way out of the ground. The golden giant was knocked back several steps, and spiderweb-like cracks spread. With the final step, the ground crumbled. It was already over a mile away from its original location. The golden giant was huge, while a human was tiny in comparison, but the golden giant actually wasn't a match for Long Chen in power. Heavy earth burial. The golden giant itself suddenly let out a roar, and it stabbed its sword into the ground. Quickly disappeared into the ground. The ground suddenly shook and subsided. The ground around Long Chen suddenly began to wrap around him like a hand trying to crush him. It was like the entire ground was being controlled, as if the very ground was the ancient family expert's weapon. Long Chen couldn't help being startled. He had never seen such a huge-scale attack. 1,000 miles of earth had instantly enveloped him. A bad feeling rose in his heart, and he hastily flew up, wanting to escape the ground. Stay behind! Gui Yan and the ancient race expert attacked. Gui Yan's bone jar had the faces of ghosts appear on it, and wailing came from them. Blood-red chains formed a huge net that blocked Long Chen's path. Long Chen snorted and slashed his sword, but these chains were exceptionally tough. His attack only cut a small nick in the net. Just as he was preparing to go through that nick, a trident smashed towards him. Die! Sneered the ancient race expert. Boom! Long Chen slashed out his sword, but as a result, he was blown back into the ground. The ground quickly sealed above him. At this moment, everyone realized it had become a huge coffin. The coffin had devoured Long Chen like a monster. It then began to shrink. In just an instant, it was only several thousand meters wide. As it shrank, the runes on it grew more concentrated, and the pressure grew greater. Long Chen, dying to my ultimate move should make you happy. The ancient family expert smiled coldly. He formed hand seals, causing the coffin to continue shrinking. This was his ultimate move. Once devoured by the coffin, it would shrink and the pressure would increase until you were crushed to powder. Furthermore, the coffin contained the pressure of the heavenly Daos as well. Even a Lifestar expert would be unable to resist unless they were also a rank 9 celestial. As the coffin continued shrinking and the pressure increased, the ancient race expert's expression suddenly changed. If Long Chun is killed like this, what about the heaven incinerating flame? With his reminder, Guiyen and the ancient family expert were startled. If Long Chun destroyed the heaven incinerating flame in his death, they would have lost a treasure. Split the heavens 5. Just as they were hesitating about whether or not they should speak to Long Chun and force him to hand over the heaven incinerating flame, a roar came from within the 300-meter coffin. A crescent moon sword image slashed out and towards the three of them. The three of them were shocked, and all used their strongest moves to block. The ancient race expert and Guiyen were the most immoral. As they blocked, they immediately retreated. The ancient family expert's golden giant ended up becoming their sacrificial shield. It was instantly blown apart. The coffin split in two and fell to the ground, revealing Long Chun. He looked like a death god that had just crawled out of hell, and his eyes shone coldly. That coffin had truly been powerful. If he had allowed it to continue compressing, it would have been dangerous. He supposed this was to be expected. Each rank 9 celestial was powerful and had their powerful trump cards. I'll send you on your way. Long Chun stepped forward, appeared in front of the ancient family expert in an instant. The ancient family expert's expression changed. He was pale, as the destruction of his golden giant had caused a backlash to his soul. An injury to the soul couldn't be healed with heavenly Tao energy. For Long Chun to choose him as his first target, he couldn't help cursing. Long Chun was launching a vicious killing blow right at the start. He retreated as fast as he could, and he summoned an earthen armor, but Long Chun's sword still severed his arm. Letting out a pain groan, he slammed his remaining hand on the ground, and a pillar shot out, carrying him into the air rapidly. That was actually normally an attack move, but now he used it as an escape move. He was sent into the sky in an instant, and so suddenly that Long Chun wasn't able to stop him. The ancient race expert was already charging at him, trying to win time for his ally. Although he had severed one of his arms, a rank 9 celestial would instantly heal such an injury. Boom! Long Chen's sword slashed into the trident. But in that instant, Long Chen's body became covered in green dragon scales. His power erupted like a volcano. The ground shattered, and rubble flew into the air. A huge hole appeared in the ground, and a wave of earth crazily spread. The ancient race expert violently coughed up blood, caught off guard by Long Chen's sudden increase in power. His arms were deformed. Something's up. He's intentionally holding back his power, cried the ancient race expert. Seeing Long Chen's sword coming for him again, he roared, "Spirit blood ignition!" Blood runes covered his body, and a wild aura rose. The ancient race expert's blood chi erupted, and the trident suddenly let out an ominous roar as if it had come to life. Boom! Long Chen's sword landed once more. The trident-wielding ancient race expert forcibly received this attack and used Long Chen's power to shoot away. The runes on his wings lit up, and he transformed into a ray of light that disappeared over the horizon. The distant spectators were all shocked to see him flee. They couldn't understand what had happened. The three of them had clearly suppressed Long Chun, so how had things turned around in the blink of an eye? The ancient race expert had been covered in blood, and his body had been covered in cracks when he had fled. He had been about to die. Long Chun hadn't expected the ancient race expert to pull out such a powerful trump card. In the instant when his blood chi erupted, his combat power multiplied by several times. His trident had caused Long Chen's arms to turn numb. Seeing that the ancient race expert had fled, Long Chun turned toward the ancient family alliance expert. But as soon as he started to move, the ground erupted, and earthen walls appeared like high mountains, blocking his path. Long Chun slashed his sword, breaking the earthen walls. But when he looked around, he found that his target had vanished. A quick survey revealed that Guiyen had also vanished at some unknown time. Perhaps he had been the first to flee. In the end, I still got nothing, sighed Long Chun. The Eastern Wasteland Bell had said that without absolute power, it was very difficult to kill heavenly geniuses who were in possession of copious karmic luck. A situation like his sneak attack against Bloodkill 9 was very rare. Of course, Long Chun had known from the start that fighting 1 against 3, it would be very difficult for him to kill any of them. He hadn't been willing to accept that, and so he had wanted to see if he could kill 1 or 2. But he ended up empty-handed. In truth, if he had wanted to kill Gui Yan, Gui Yan's life would have most likely been lost here. But he hadn't wanted to kill him or he would have released him for nothing last time. Right now, Long Chun estimated that in a one-on-one or in a sneak attack situation, his chances of killing a rank 9 Celestial were still decent. But in a group fight, he would just be wasting energy. Unless he could fully condense the Divine Gate Star, it would be very difficult to counter the karmic luck acting behind the scenes. However, despite how he consumed pills like his life depended on it, the Divine Gate Star was still improving very slowly. There was an extremely large distance between its current state and its peak state. Long Chun looked around. The other people had already fled. The lava river that had been blocked had found a new path and was once more flowing. I suppose it wasn't a complete waste. Now I'll be able to use Huolong openly. Long Chun didn't care if others spread this news or not. In any case, he had recorded his own scene of him capturing the flame dragon. If anyone dared to frame him as being Master Long San, he would take out the photographic jade and slap them in the face. I'm really not used to wielding a sword. It's too light, and I can't use my real power. Long Chun looked at his sword and shook his head. This sword was something he had snatched away in the Heaven Dragon Flame region. He didn't have any better weapons, so he was forced to use it. Although the sword was also an ancestral item, it wasn't a good fit for him. It was a sword for flame cultivators, and he wasn't a real flame cultivator. Tidying up his thoughts, Long Chun left this region, continuing deeper into the ancient battlefield. He quickly reached another region of violent and chaotic space. This time, the spatial fluctuations were even more intense. Long Chun sensed 2 different laws clashing. Space was booming, and it was like the roaring of 10,000 beasts. When he entered this chaotic space, he felt like a fish trying to swim through a turbulent current. Spatial energy was constantly pulling at him, and he almost wasn't able to bear it. Damn. So this is the result of a clash between 2 supreme magical arts. Even after this many years, the heavenly Tao will left behind by these 2 experts is still clashing. Long Chun was shocked. I wonder if I could learn it? Long Chun suddenly had an extremely brazen thought. Looking around, he decided to have Lei Long come and protect him. The current Lei Long was no longer its old self. Unlike Huolong, Long Chun hadn't been constantly interrupting it. By absorbing the lightning chain's energy, Lei Long's power had crazily risen during this time. His power was no weaker than Huolong's now. With Lei Long's protection, Long Chun could safely attempt to immerse himself in the clashing energy in the air. He sat lotus-style on the ground and slowly circulated the 9-star hegemon body art. His divine ring appeared behind him. His eyes were closed as he entered a state of emptiness. Long Chun seemed to be in a dream. As the 9-star hegemon body art circulated, he was transported through the river of time. The roaring of magical beasts and devil creatures rang out in his ears. When he heard those voices, his heart shook ever so slightly, causing the sound to intensify. Long Chun knew this was a result of his distraction, and taking a breath, he completely relaxed his heart. The roaring grew louder once more. With his experience from last time, he didn't try to guess what the origins of those voices were. Right now, he was willing this empty state of mind to grasp some of the remnants of the ancient battle that had been fought here. Originally, he had just been testing an extremely brazen thought. This kind of thinking was completely crazy. The only reason why he was trying it was because he was experimenting with the 9-star hegemon body art. He hadn't expected to see some hope of success from this test. But right now, he couldn't think about that. He had to take the attitude of an indifferent spectator. Not trying to see nor hear anything, he could only let it come naturally. The voices grew clearer. He heard the sounds of weapons whistling through the air. He heard the wails of strange beasts. He also heard the sound of sharp blades piercing flesh. But he still maintained this steady state of mind. These were scars left behind from that ancient time. They had been imprinted in the heavenly Daos, and the 9-star hegemon body art was currently seizing them. Once the imprint was seized, it would vanish. Once he grasped it, it would cease to exist. So this kind of opportunity would only come once. If he missed it, there would be no do-overs. He listened to the voices, but he didn't pay any meticulous attention to any of them. A blurry scene appeared before his eyes, but he still couldn't look. In fact, he intentionally didn't look for fear of being attracted by anything he saw. The slightest disturbance in his mind would cause all this to vanish. The scene slowly grew clearer. Long Chun had gotten used to this state, and he began to look at the battle. Countless strange creatures were present. There were beasts that looked like apes but had lizard-like tails. Some were like leopards, but they had 3 heads and a pair of wings. There were also human-shaped creatures. They had a pair of bat-like wings and 2 horns coming out of their heads. They had fangs protruding out of their mouths, and their bodies were covered in scales. Those are devil creatures. Long Chun recognized those creatures from their appearance. As the scene grew clearer, he began to sense those creatures' auras. That further proved that his guess was correct. One of the devil creatures charged right at him. Its clawed hands stabbed through his head, but he still didn't move. Black blood splashed. A ray of sword chi slashed through the air, killing the devil creature. Long Chun was shocked to find that these devil creatures were practically all on the level of 11th rank magical beasts. But this one ray of sword chi killed hundreds and thousands of them. He didn't dare to look at the master of this sword. He had to maintain a steady state of mind. He couldn't be drawn in by any details. The army of devil beasts collapsed, and he finally saw an army of human experts slaughtering their way through them. The shocking thing was that these human experts all had 9 flowers revolving behind them. They were all rank 9 celestials. Long Chun sat on the ground, not moving. He could now feel his own existence in this world. He was sitting in the middle of the battlefield like a specter, calmly watching the battle. Suddenly, roaring shook the sky. The sky split open as a huge claw descended from above the clouds. The claw was like a mountain. The world shook as it fell. Those human experts were appalled and attacked it with full power. Yet that claw still fell, destroying the land. Those powerful human experts were all killed by this one claw. Not even one survived. Long Chun couldn't help being shocked. What kind of monster was that? How could it be so huge? The world couldn't even fit it. Just a single claw from it was able to kill so many human experts. The claw rose from the ground, and a burst of lava flew into the air, forming a river. Was this the origin of the lava river? Long Chun instantly thought of the lava river that still existed here. The sky began to crumble. It was like the world couldn't bear the power contained in the claw and was about to explode. This was different from its first attack. Divine light was erupting from the claw, and divine runes spread. This time, the power was even more terrifying than its first attack. Just as it felt like the world would crumble from this attack, a golden light shot out. Long Chun couldn't see what that light was. However, when it smashed into the claw, the entire world crumbled away. Long Chun seemed to hear the sound of a star exploding, but then everything vanished. His eyes flew open, and he took a deep breath. His back was covered in cold sweat, and he was involuntarily shivering. The instant those 2 powers had collided, he had felt like his soul would be torn apart. It was like that power was so terrifying that it was impossible to bear witness to it even through the river of time. One attack caused heaven and earth to crumble. One attack caused stars to explode. Just what kind of terrifying power was that? It had completely surpassed his imagination. That level is too high. There's no way for me to even touch something like that. I should switch locations. Long Chun shook his head and left. Boom! An endless sea of lightning filled heaven and earth, drowning countless devil creatures. An expert covered in lightning rampaged through their midst, slaughtering the devil creatures. That person's appearance was blurry. He seemed like a human-shaped bolt of lightning. The weapons in his hands were also formed of lightning and could constantly transform. They were completely invincible. In just an incense stick's worth of time, that expert slaughtered all the devil creatures, leaving behind a mountain of corpses. Space exploded, and the world turned dark. Some kind of energy caused Long Chen's scrying to come to a sudden stop. This was Long Chen's 7th time using the 9-star hegemon body art to go back in the flow of time and peer into that ancient battle. But he didn't gain anything with his first 6 attempts. Whatever he saw was far too profound for him to even attempt understanding, or there hadn't been enough time for him to see anything before his vision was cut short. This chaotic domain had countless battle scars that were imprinted in the heavenly Daos. They were random and without order. There was no way to find any pattern to them. Long Chen didn't gain anything, but because of his continuous attempts at peering into the mysteries of the past, he was receiving a backlash, made worse by the terrifying eruptions of power from that battle. His soul was aching, but this ended up provoking Long Chen's stubborn nature. The more he couldn't obtain something, the more he wanted it. As a result, on his 7th try, at this 7th location, Long Chen received a delightful surprise. That senior definitely had a legendary lightning spirit body. His entire body was practically completely transformed into lightning, and he had no more flesh and blood. How terrifying! Long Chen was full of admiration. That person had actually abandoned their own flesh and blood body to become an incarnation of lightning. Just how much bravery did that require? Or was it simply craziness? Long Chen quickly recorded the shape of the runes, as well as how this technique circulated one's energy. He then transferred all this to Lei Long. What delighted him was that Lei Long instantly comprehended what he transferred to it, and it actually became able to use the lightning art. Long Chen was wild with joy. While that senior had possessed a lightning spirit body, he had still been a human. But Lei Long was a spiritual body composed of heavenly tribulation lightning. For Lei Long, controlling lightning runes was as easy as a person controlling their limbs. To Lei Long, this kind of high-level art was just a slightly more difficult movement. It learned it in just a bit, and it would simply need some time to train in it before it was mastered. However, Lei Long also needed Long Chen's power. It needed the support of Long Chen's spiritual yuan to bring out the full power of this magical art. Originally, he was worried that he wouldn't be able to comprehend much of this person's lightning arts. Even comprehending a third of them would require a huge amount of time and energy. But now that he tested teaching Lei Long, he realized that this wasn't even a problem. Lei Long, you absorb the lightning chains while studying these lightning arts. When you figure things out, teach them to me. This is very important to me. Long Chen gave this mission to Lei Long. Once Lei Long fully comprehended these lightning arts, considering their mental and spiritual connection, it wouldn't be long before Long Chen could learn them as well. After obtaining these lightning arts, Long Chen didn't bother wasting any more time. These ancient techniques were too difficult to obtain, and also too difficult to comprehend. He didn't have that much time to waste. Long Chen killed one of the ancient family alliance's disciples, and he learned some information that wasn't behind restrictions. First of all, it was now confirmed for him that Immortal was fine. Furthermore, his life was very lively recently. He continuously appeared out of nowhere, causing an uproar in the ancient family alliance. He also learned some information about what Immortal had done. In just the past year, he had killed over 1,000 geniuses of the ancient family alliance. He had defeated 9 rank 9 celestials, killing 3 of them. He had dug up 1,306 ancestral graves within the ancient family alliance. He had plundered their resources hundreds of times. Many of the ancient families had had every last bit of their wealth plundered. When he thought of that, Long Chen's expression became odd. Could it be that he had been infected by that fellow? He had also plundered Pill Valley. He lamented inside that, as one would expect, ink-stained. Immortal's surname, M.O., meant ink, and now it seemed he had been turned black by Immortal as well. Long Chen suddenly felt that before he had met Immortal, he had been an extremely kind and sunshiny youth. Other than learning about Immortal, he also learned why the Dark Forest had gathered the powers. Their reasoning wasn't that off from what Long Chen had expected. The Dark Forest was using the ancient battlefield and the Forest of Life as bargaining chips to work together with them. Their goal was to hold Pill Valley in check. In truth, Long Chun was speechless towards their foolishness. Ever since Pill Valley and the powers other than the righteous path had accepted the heaven-devouring forest taking root in the martial heaven continent, the various powers had obtained countless benefits from the spirit world. The Forest of Life and the ancient battlefield had essentially become trial regions for them to temper their disciples. But did the Dark Forest really think that just that would be enough for these powers to unite with them against Pill Valley? That was just a fantasy. Medicinal pills were the lifeblood of cultivators. What power would turn against Pill Valley? The disciple he had killed didn't know many of the details, but Long Chun trusted that the various powers all thought the Dark Forest was a group of idiots. They would just take advantage while they could. If the Dark Forest really started a war with Pill Valley, they would just try to smooth things over. In any case, they just had to take care to not offend either side. Long Chun clearly saw through thoughts. This time, in order to express their sincerity, the Dark Forest didn't restrict the number of people allowed into the spirit world, and had set up an entrance to the spirit world that allowed the corrupt path to kill any adventurers from the martial heaven continent. Through his soul search, he also obtained a map of the ancient battlefield. Only now did he realize the ancient battlefield had safe passageways that allowed a person to avoid the spatial cracks. Realizing this, Long Chun started to sweat. After scheming all day, all that happened was that he became dumber. If he had accidentally been devoured by a spatial crack, he'd have nowhere to cry. With the map, Long Chun found that the ancient battlefield was a long strip. At the end of it was a region that was said to be where a sovereign had fought. There were countless treasures there, and there was even a chance to comprehend what the sovereign had left behind. The most alluring thing was that rumor was that the sovereign had killed a top devil expert, and had sealed their divine weapon there. Anyone who obtained it would obtain that devil expert's inheritance and gain a power rivaling a sovereign. This is mine. That's mine too. This is all mine. Long Chen's eyes blazed with greed as he looked over the map. He couldn't believe he had wasted so much time in this outer region. He charged directly to the core. With the map, his progress was rapid. He constantly made turns, avoiding the chaotic regions. When he passed a particularly huge chaotic region, a divine pressure appeared, one that invoked reverence and worship. Yes, this is the pressure of a sovereign. It's just like the sovereign blood seal. But their auras aren't the same. They're two different generations of sovereigns, thought Long Chun. This region in front of him was a boundless, desolate world of chaotic space. The space here was like a mirage. The scene was constantly changing. The sky collapsed, the stars vanished. Mountains and plains became nothing. In front of this power, the world couldn't remain stable. It was like the world had died in this region. But when he carefully focused himself, what he saw in front of him was simply mist. It was impossible to see through this mist. Gods, devils, immortals, all sorts of images would flit through this space. It felt possible to hear a grand Tao's music, yet that music also sounded like the wailing of ghosts. This is where a sovereign once fought? Let me try sensing it again. Long Chun clenched his fists, a heroic feeling rising in his heart. A sovereign was an existence that stood at the peak of the marital path. They were unrivaled, completely suppressing everyone else in their generation. No one could contend against them. Everyone had to respect a sovereign. If it hadn't been for the sovereigns, the martial heaven continent would no longer exist. They had been the protective gods of this world. Thinking of how he was standing on the battlefield that a sovereign had once fought on, Long Chun couldn't help feeling excited. He entered the mist. This was a world of both illusion and reality. With each step he took, reality changed. With one step, lightning rang in the air and a torrent of rain fell. With another step, a gentle breeze blew by in the sunlight, the fragrance of flowers and birdsong in the air. As he advanced, reality continued to change. Immortals descended from the heavens, ghosts demanded his life, the sun, the moon, the stars all changed. The transformations continued. He felt like he was in a world where spacetime was in chaos. The power of a sovereign is capable of breaking the laws of heaven and earth. Could it be that the real ability of a sovereign is to change the laws of the world? Wondered Long Chun. This chaotic space was actually extremely hard for him to endure. As he walked, it was like he suddenly went from walking on the ground to walking up a wall, and then he suddenly felt like he was upside down. Space and time were in chaos here. This was different from the clashes of laws he had felt before. There were no spatial cracks here. That was because the power here had reached the level that it formed a resonance with the world instead of simply cracking it. However, the two powers that were present were not harmonious, resulting in this chaotic region. Everything was in chaos here. Even the laws of heaven and earth were thrown into chaos. How could I possibly go back and sense anything from that time? Long Chun couldn't even muster up the bravery of circulating the 9-star hegemon body art to try and see the sovereign's battle. He was afraid that kind of power could easily exterminate him even through the river of time. More importantly, this chaotic space meant he couldn't do it even if he wanted to. This chaotic space was a complete mess with no start or end. If the previous regions were like balls of wool where he could follow one thread down to the past, this was a sea of turbid water. Trying to sense anything was nonsense. As he advanced deeper, he grew dizzy and lightheaded. At some unknown time, the chaotic space became still. For some unknown reason, he entered a barren land. Within this barren land was a seductive figure that caused Long Chen's expression to change. Slender legs, bursting curves, a thin waist, and long billowing hair. A figure of such pinnacle beauty would enrapture every man with just a look. This kind of figure wasn't something a human should be able to possess. Her proportions were so perfect it was like a god had carved her body meticulously. This was a beauty and perfection that shouldn't exist. At first, Long Chun was hopeful that it wasn't her. But when he saw that bones soared on her back, his heart plummeted to the depths. Long Chen's appearance also startled her. She slowly turned, revealing her beauty that was perfect down to the last detail. Even each hair of her eyebrows was perfectly matched. When she saw Long Chen, her ocean blue eyes lit up. They were like sapphires reflecting the moonlight. The sight of her was dazzling. Long Chen's heart pounded. He unconsciously took out his sword and retreated half a step. It was like this half a step's distance could make him feel slightly safer. She smiled. Her lips curled slightly, and her eyes were also smiling. This smile could topple a nation, but it gave Long Chen goosebumps. "Are you afraid of me?" Long Yuyan's cherry lips opened, her voice like the song of an oriole. But for some reason, each word and syllable contained bone-chilling killing intent. It was like Long Yuyan had become one with killing and slaughter. Each breath, each blink of an eye, each one of her movements could be the premonition of a slaughter. Long Chun had never expected to run into this killing goddess here. What alarmed him the most was that this killing goddess's cultivation base had reached the late Jade Core realm. If it was just her cultivation base that had increased, that would be one thing. But with his sharp senses from the 9-star hegemon body art, Long Chun also sensed a strong mortal danger. How could I feel afraid? We're old friends. It wouldn't be suitable to describe what I'm feeling as fear. Long Chun forced out a laugh. He very much wanted to say that he wasn't the slightest bit afraid. These goosebumps were from the cold. Long Chun grumbled inside. It could be said that his cultivation speed had been quite fast recently. His power was soaring rapidly with each passing day, and he had thrown his peers far into the distance. However, this dangerous person in front of him had not only thrown him in the dust when it came to cultivation base, but her actual power had also grown explosively. Ever since leaving Pill Valley, Long Chun spent each day consuming medicinal pills. But his cultivation base was only at the 3rd heaven stage of Jade Core. As old friends, don't you think we should hug to express our feelings? Long Yuyan's sapphire eyes seemed to see right through Long Chen's heart. Damn it, she had her void-piercing eyes. She can see right through my thoughts. Long Chun immediately recalled the strange power of her eyes. He knew that all his thoughts were being read by her. As a result, he became much more relaxed and smiled. I wouldn't dare to hug such a beautiful woman. A certain jealous somebody would beat me. Long Chun threw caution to the wind. The worst case was that they would fight. How could he be afraid of such a thing? I've been watching you. You're getting stronger quite quickly, but you have too many things holding you back. They're restricting your cultivation speed. The people by your side will one day cause your death. Lang Yuan shook her head. Long Chun swung his sword, unleashing a blast of wind that blew back Lang Yuan's hair. But she didn't even blink. She just stared expressionlessly at him. I'm not like you. I have my brothers and sisters. They aren't a burden. They are what allow me to continue forward and get stronger. Don't try to judge me according to your standards, and don't try to judge my brothers and sisters. You are not me. Long Chen's expression was dark with a fury that he didn't bother concealing. He was different from Lang Yuan. Lang Yuan was always alone. She had no distractions, so her cultivation base rapidly advanced. Yet, for Long Chen, when he wanted to advance, it was different. It was just like the divine gate star. As the divine gate star advanced, it raised the other stars with it, making it slower. For Long Chen, he had to bring up the Dragonblood Legion as he advanced. So in Lang Yuan's view, his actions were very foolish. If a genius dragged up a pile of garbage with them, they would turn into garbage as well. It would be a waste of talent. However, Long Chen had never thought that. Each warrior in the Dragonblood Legion was his brother. They wouldn't hesitate to die for him, and in the same vein, he would put his life on the line to protect them. Perhaps only the Dragonblood Legion could comprehend this kind of feeling. Let alone Lang Yuan, who came from the corrupt path. Even the righteous path's people would scoff at them. Although Lang Yuan's tone was very flat and she didn't express any disdain, Long Chun was still unable to accept her words. I really am unable to understand. You sacrifice so much for them. Just what are you hoping to obtain? Asked Lang Yuan. If someone else asked me this, I'd scoff at them. But to you, I can only express my sympathy. Oh! Lang Yuan raised her brows slightly. In truth, you're very pitiable. Your closest companion died to your own hands, and starting then, you locked your emotions inside. You've already forgotten what trust is, what sacrifice is, what depending on others is. When there is a true bond between people, they don't bother thinking about what they can get in return. This kind of bond can make you feel warm when you are cold, can guide you when you are lost, can give you strength when you feel powerless. When I encounter enemies I can't defeat, they are what give me endless power. They are what tell me that I can't die, that I can't lose. That's why I'm still alive today. Having cut yourself off from emotion, you will never be able to feel the warmth of sunlight. Long Chun looked at Lang Yuan sincerely. Lang Yuan looked into the distance without saying anything, but her hands had unconsciously tightened. Long Chun was pleasantly surprised. He continued, Do you still remember when you were brought into the corrupt path to cultivate? You were still a child. Your group of 5 died one by one to the corrupt path's rules. In order to get vengeance for them, you cut off the head of your instructor. What were you trying to gain from that? When it was only you and your best friend left, when you decided to give the chance to live to her, did you think about what you were trying to gain? When your best friend intentionally died to your blade because she understood you all too well, did she think about what she was getting in return? Long Chen's voice was very solemn and very convincing. Most importantly, he was bringing up the miserable story that Lang Yuan had told him. A crystalline tear dropped onto the desert. Lang Yuan's eyes were unfocused as she was lost in her distant memories. Long Chun continued again. You felt what emotions are. Your emotions are still there. All you have to do is use your heart to feel them, and the warmth of the sun will fill your heart. Walk out from the shadows cast over your heart. Then you will find that the sunlight is so warm that many companions are waiting for you in the sunlight. Will you be there in the sunlight as well? Lang Yuan turned to look at Long Chun once more. Her flawless face was touched with crystalline tears, but her eyes were still icy. Of course. As long as you dash, Long Chun brazenly stretched out his hand toward Lang Yuan's face. But just as his hand was about to touch her cheek, lightning runes lit up on his feet, and he shot back. It was like a cord tied around his waist had suddenly pulled him backward. And yet, despite how fast he was, a bone sword still cut across his waist. If he had been the slightest bit slower, he'd have been cut in two. Fuck. You really are ill. Why would you suddenly attack? Cursed Longchen. Ha ha ha. Lang Yuan laughed. The tears on her face vanished, and she appeared just as icy as ever. Long Chun, I didn't think your storytelling skills are so skilled. They're not one whit inferior to your fighting skills, teased Lang Yuan, brushing back a stray hair behind her ear. I have many other skills too, but I worry you won't get the pleasure of enjoying them, raged Long Chun, saying something completely immoral. He truly was infuriated. He had been duped. He really had thought he had moved Lang Yuan, but she had just been toying with him. I do want to enjoy them, but do you have the guts? Asked Lang Yuan. She wasn't angry. She felt happy seeing Long Chun clenching his teeth. His face flushed. Can you and I not properly speak? I don't want to be your enemy. Long Chun took a deep breath and did his best to calm down. He had always felt Lang Yuan to be an extremely difficult person to handle. He didn't feel like Lang Yuan was his enemy, as the two of them didn't have any real enmity between them. However, they weren't friends either, because Lang Yuan had her illness. When her illness erupted, she would want to kill him. Of course we can. You're the man I favor. The only precondition is that you can survive my attacks. Lang Yuan smiled. Do you have some illness? I never provoked you, so why do you want to kill me? If you have an illness, tell me. I have medicine, raged Long Chun. You don't like fierce girls? Don't you feel that this kind of hunting and killing game is very stimulating? Let me show you. I'm going to attack. Lang Yuan's smile disappeared, and she unsheathed her bone sword. The void was cut in two. When she unsheathed her sword, she was still 10 meters away. But strangely, without making a move, as she slashed her sword, she appeared in front of him like a phantom. A chill came with this sword. Felt like it could freeze a person's soul. The face that was smiling beautifully like a flower had become cold-hearted in the blink of an eye. Long Chun was shocked to see Lang Yuan seemingly tear straight through space to teleport in front of him. This was an inconceivable movement art. Long Chun couldn't even grasp the path of her sword, and he had to react with his intuition. A chill cut through Long Chen's face. Blood slowly dripped down. Long Chen's sword was severed. The severed half fall to the ground. This ancestral item was now broken, its item spirit annihilated. You were distracted. Haven't I already told you that since you're the man I favor, I will kill you? Reminded Lang Yuan. I understand. Fine, then let's see who lives or dies, replied Long Chen coldly. He completely gave up on curing Lang Yuan. He didn't have any more fantasies about converting her, even if the Eastern Wasteland Belle had said that he would one day understand the truth. However, this wasn't one day. This was the present, and presently Lang Yuan wanted to kill him. The truth wasn't important. He couldn't be merciful to those who wanted to kill him. Right now, what was in his eyes wasn't Lang Yuan, but a terrifying opponent. So if he wanted to live, he had to kill her. That's the right way. If you don't have the determination to kill me, you'll die to my sword sooner or later. Prepare yourself, because this time, I'll be serious. Lang Yuan's sword pointed toward the sky. Her sapphire eyes were like ice, and ripples began to appear within them. Rumble. Lang Yuan's hair began to fly, and an air of death filled the world. Thunderous rumbling rang out that was like the roaring of demons from hell. Heaven and earth changed color, while darkness shrouded the land. There wasn't the slightest bit of life left in this world. The only thing present was death. Lang Yuan was like the god of this world. She didn't have the slightest emotion. She was a killing god who had come to strip this world of all life. Her bone sword quivered ever so slightly. A touch of black appeared on the edge of her white sword. It was so sharp that it seemed to even slash through the restrictions of spacetime. This time, Long Chun was prepared, and he took out the pot. His divine ring was out, 5 stars revolved in his eyes, and green dragon scales covered his body. Long Chun raised his power to his peak and smashed the pot at Lang Yuan. BOM. When the pot met the bone sword, space exploded and ripples spread, tearing at the sky. They went all out even in the first exchange. With a thunderous cry, Long Chun smashed the pot again at Lang Yuyan, lightning erupting from his body. Lang Yuyan's bone sword was too terrifying. It looked as fragile as jade, like a finely crafted ornament that would crack easily. But it had cut through his ancestral item sword. In their first exchange, the bone sword had caused Long Chen's blood to flip inside him. Even in his peak state, he didn't have any advantage. Now seeing Long Chen fighting at full strength, Lang Yuyan smiled. She ignored Long Chen's attack and slashed her sword behind her. I have the void-piercing eyes? Did you think you could trick me? Boom! The bone sword once more collided with the pot. The pot slowly lowered, revealing Long Chen's face. This was his true body. The one who had been attacking from the front had been a fake. What's true is false, what's false is true. Sometimes what you see with your eyes isn't true. You have to use your heart to see the world, said Long Chen lightly. Are you cursing me for not having a heart? Yes. Buzz. At this moment, the Long Chen that was at the front suddenly arrived, smashing the pot at Lang Yuyan. A touch of surprise appeared on Lang Yuyan's face. She extended her arm, using her hand as a blade that slashed against the pot. The pot exploded, but what replaced it was a burst of lightning. Lightning devours heaven and earth. That Long Chen at the front suddenly transformed into lightning runes that wrapped around Lang Yuyan. This Long Chen was one of Lei Long's split bodies. It was based on one of the ancient magical arts he had learned in the ancient battlefield. After learning this magical art, Lei Long became capable of coming out in whatever form it wanted. It was no longer restricted to a dragon form, so Lang Yuyan mistook it for Long Chen's clone. The most amazing thing about this move was that the split body could switch places with the true body at any moment. The split body was simply used to draw the enemy's attention. It didn't possess any attack power, but if it was used well, it could achieve amazing results. Its appearance was essentially flawless, and even a person's killing intent and aura could be replicated perfectly. When it came to clones and split bodies, most of them were simply spiritual clones that didn't possess much power. Other than spiritual clones, there were also clones made of flesh and blood. For such clones, you needed to sacrifice a portion of your spiritual strength. But the power of a clone could only be 80% of the true body. This was an absolute limit. Furthermore, this limit was almost impossible to reach. A clone possessing 70% of the true body's power would be a top-tier clone. However, peak heavenly geniuses would rarely create any clones. One reason was that it took up too much energy and required sacrificing a part of their soul. But the main reason was that once a clone was killed, it would affect the future cultivation of the true body. So those willing to condense non-spiritual clones were very rare. Normally, only people who had reached their limits would create true flesh clones. Sometimes that clone could be used to deceive enemies and save their lives. To put it frankly, it was like a scapegoat. That was why Lang Yuyan wasn't fooled. Even if she didn't possess her void-piercing eyes, it was obvious that someone like Long Chen wouldn't condense a flesh and blood clone. That was why she said that he couldn't trick her. Yet, it was because of this that she did end up falling for it. Just as she ignored that spiritual clone, Lei Long's true body switched out with its split body. Now Thunder Force was tightly binding Lang Yuyan, trapping her. Just as Long Chen thought he had won, a sword pierced through the lightning chains. It seemed that nothing in this world could stop that bone sword. As soon as Lang Yuyan appeared, the prepared Long Chen smashed the pot down. However, he was shocked to find his pot miss. Lang Yuyan had vanished. Lang Yuyan hadn't just vanished from his sight. She had also vanished from Lei Long's senses. Long Chen suddenly felt a chill on his back, and he instinctively moved the pot to his back. Bang! Long Chen let out a muffled groan as the bone sword stabbed into the pot. He staggered forwards. But even more shockingly, as he involuntarily staggered forward, Lang Yuyan appeared in front of him. Her bone sword already touched his chest. The bone sword pierced his chest. The lightning filling the air vanished, and the world suddenly became calm. Lang Yuyan's bone sword was stabbing through Long Chen's chest, But Long Chen's right hand was also pressed against Lang Yueyan's chest. Neither of them spoke. They simply stood there. A sharp light shone from the bone sword. It was like a sickle of death that could reap Long Chen's life at any moment. However, Long Chen's right hand had two dragon-shaped images revolving on it. All of Lei Long and Hua Long's power was concentrated there. As long as he willed it, they would unleash all their power. Lang Yueyan wouldn't have any chance of surviving. Now their positions were extremely awkward. Long Chen especially felt it as he sensed a slightly warm sensation from his hand. After a moment, Lang Yueyan looked at Long Chen and shook her head. "Why must you be like this? There's nowhere else for me to put my hand," said Long Chen. "You really didn't have a choice. I'm talking about how you could have killed me. Why didn't you? I was clearly aiming to kill you." A complicated expression appeared on Lang Yueyan's face. Long Chen was silent, so Lang Yueyan continued. "I was tricked by your lightning clone. If you had tried to kill me instead of trapping me, I might have been killed. And now you could have unleashed your power in your right hand, while my sword had yet to completely pierce your body. If you had attacked, I would definitely have died, while you would only be heavily injured. You let off a person who wanted to kill you twice. Don't you think you're very dumb?" Long Chen was still silent. "Answer me," demanded Lang Yueyan. "There's nothing to say. If you want to call me dumb, if you want to call me foolish, if you want to call me an idiot, then fine. This is just who I am. If you want to laugh at me, then laugh away," said Long Chen. Long Chen also felt that he was very stupid. With his kind of character, he definitely shouldn't have mercy on someone who wanted his life. But for some reason, he was unable to launch the killing blow. It was like there was a voice inside his soul screaming at him that if he killed Lang Yueyan, he would regret it. Before attacking, he was resolved to kill her. But when the opportunity came, he found himself unable to proceed. This had nothing to do with what the Eastern Wasteland Bell had said. It also had nothing to do with his brain. This was an unknown instinct. Lang Yueyan lowered her head and pulled her sword out of Long Chen. She pressed a hand against Long Chen's chest, and the wound instantly healed. All of Lang Yueyan's killing intent vanished. She no longer seemed like a terrifying killing goddess, but an ordinary girl. "How long are you planning to keep touching?" asked Lang Yueyan lightly, looking at her own chest. "Oh!" Only now did Long Chen take back his hand. And it was only at this time that he felt that particular feeling. Before this, he hadn't dared to have any thoughts with his life in his opponent's hands. Now the danger had passed, and only then did he feel that moving sensation. Soft, ample, plump, bouncy. That was what he sensed in the instant that he removed his hand. "Thank you for your praise," said Lang Yueyan. "Ah, it's just the truth," said Long Chen without thinking about it. But his expression quickly changed as he realized Lang Yueyan's void-piercing eyes were seeing through his thoughts. He instinctively retreated several steps and raised the pot in preparation for a battle. Lang Yueyan's bone sword was already raised. However, Lang Yueyan didn't attack. She simply sheathed the bone sword on her back. The bone sword and bone scabbard looked like they had been carved of fine jade. No one would expect the bone sword to be such a terrifying weapon. Long Chen felt awkward, but he also felt a burst of fury. Lang Yueyan had definitely done this on purpose to embarrass him. "That pot's not bad," said Lang Yueyan. "It's good for cooking," said Long Chen randomly. He wished he had more to say, but despite feeling that he was pretty eloquent, he had no idea what to say to this killing goddess. Lang Yueyan's mood changed at the drop of a pin. Who knew what he might say that would cause her to suddenly attack him? He wanted to leave, but he also felt that would be a feeble display. Worst of all, he couldn't try to think of anything, or it would be read by Lang Yueyan. "Let's sit together." Lang Yueyan slowly sat on a clean rock nearby. She indicated for Long Chen to join her. To be invited by a peerless beauty was something every man dreamed of. But Long Chen felt like he was in a nightmare. However, he was a man, and he thickened his skin and sat beside her, keeping the pot beside him. That was the only thing that gave him a slight sense of safety. "Long Chen, do you feel like I'm crazy?" asked Lang Yueyan quietly as she stared into the distance. Can I not reply? Probed Longchen. No. If I tell the truth, will I be attacked? I can't guarantee anything. Oh, then no, I don't. Tell the truth, demanded Lang Yuan. I'm afraid of being attacked. Longchen shook his head. If you don't, then I'll attack you right now. Lang Yuan slowly raised her hand to her back. Cough, in truth, you're not that bad. At least your craziness is intermittent. Longchen put it in the nicest way possible. Lang Yuan lowered her head and was silent for a long time. Longchen was feeling uneasy. He didn't know when this woman would start being crazy again. This kind of waiting was torture. He was like a prisoner waiting to be executed. But his execution date wasn't set. He wasn't allowed to relax at all, and had to be ready for the executioner's blade at any moment. Lang Yuan looked at her feet, which repeatedly brushed against the sand. It was unknown what she was thinking. I've decided. I won't kill you. Finally, Lang Yuan raised her head. Looking at the sky, she sighed. Really? Longchen was stunned. Had she been cured? Yes, really. Congratulations. Lang Yuan turned to stare at Longchen. For some unknown reason, her sapphire eyes had become much dimmer. You? What's wrong? Longchen was startled. The current Lang Yuan didn't look like a killing goddess at all. Instead, she seemed like a pitiable girl who had lost all hope. What? Is this not good? Lang Yuan smiled. Although her smile was beautiful, it seemed miserable. Seeing that smile made Longchen's heart ache. However, it wasn't as if he could ask her to continue hunting him down. If he did, wouldn't that mean he had caught her illness? If you have any secret sorrows, you can tell me. I might be able to help, said Longchen sincerely. Longchen felt a strange mix of emotions when it came to Lang Yuan. He wasn't able to describe it. She was like the legendary hellflower. Legend was that those who saw it would be attracted by its body. Despite knowing that approaching it meant death, they were unable to resist the allure. Even if they were to die, they had to get closer. Lang Yuan gave Longchen the same feeling. Lang Yuan was both beautiful and dangerous. But for some reason, Longchen had a desire to protect her. That kind of thinking was very foolish and very dangerous. It was also very stimulating. He was unable to extricate himself from her. You bastard! Why did you have to treat me so well? If you hadn't, I would be able to keep trying to kill you. Lang Yuan smiled as she cursed him, but tears had appeared in her eyes. Lang Yuan got closer to Longchen. She wrapped her arms around his waist, resting her head on his chest. Longchen spread his arms, not daring to move. His spine was rigid, and his goosebumps rippled. This should have been a very alluring action, but being hugged by Lang Yuan, Longchen felt a chill. It's over for me. Even the pot won't be able to save me this time. At this distance, if Lang Yuan wanted to kill him, he would definitely die. He cursed inside. Well, if he died, then he died. He embraced Lang Yuan, softly patting her hair. Other than killing me, can't you find something else to do with me? Longchen bitterly smiled. No. Before you, I was constantly searching for targets. But after encountering you, I realized that in this world, only you could. Lang Yuan shook her head, cutting herself off in the middle of her words. Longchen, if I one day die, will you feel bad? Yes, I'll feel very bad, replied Longchen. Then that's good. Thank you. Lang Yuan suddenly laughed while crying. Her smile was like a blooming flower, while her tears were like pearls of dew. That was an indescribable beauty. Yuan, can't we properly talk one time? Whatever words you have in your heart, tell me. I'll keep your secret, and I'll help you think of what to do, promised Longchen. He knew Lang Yuan had her own secrets, but she never revealed those. Aren't you the same as well? You have just as many secrets as me. Do you tell them to your brothers and sisters? Retorted Lang Yuan. It's useless to share some secrets with others, so there's no need to reveal them. I've already figured out my path forward. I'll have to rely on myself to resolve things, and I can't rely on others. Lang Yuan stood, the tears and smile on her face vanishing. Her icy expression appeared once more. The killing goddess was back. You weren't sleep-talking just now, right? Are you going to start trying to kill me again now? Long Chun asked suspiciously upon seeing her return to this state. The current Lang Yuyen felt like a completely different person than the one who had been speaking to him a moment ago. If he couldn't smell her scent, he might even think he had been caught in an illusion before. Don't worry. I said I wouldn't kill you. Furthermore, I'll sever the karma between us. We'll walk our own paths in the future, said Lang Yuyen. Why does that sound a bit hurtful? Long Chun bitterly smiled, feeling like the emotions that had just appeared in Lang Yuyen had been cut off by a knife. This battlefield has something I need, so I'm going to search for it. This calm place that we're in is a special place where experts once died. It can be considered a pure land within this chaos. They used their own bodies to create minor worlds in their deaths. Because they died, the minor worlds became even weaker, and within a sovereign's pressure, these minor worlds form layers upon layers. If you're lucky, you'll be able to find heaven-defying treasures. Longchen, goodbye. I will return your favor of not killing me twice. After Lang Yuyen finished talking, she took out her bone sword and slashed the air. Divine light rippled on the sword tip, and the void was cut open like it was a piece of cloth. Lang Yuyen glanced back at Long Chun for a moment before stepping into that opening. Through the other side of the opening, Long Chun saw a dark and gloomy world. Before he could see any details, the opening closed and it vanished. All that was before him was this barren desert. Long Chun was unable to calm himself for a long time. Although he had escaped from Lang Yuyen's irrational, vexing killing, he didn't feel the slightest joy. Instead, he felt disappointment. When Lang Yuyen had asked him if he would feel bad if she died, a vague sense of unease had appeared in his heart. After she said she would give up trying to kill him, her bright eyes had immediately lost their luster. That scene was deeply imprinted in his mind. Just what secrets did Lang Yuyen have? Why did she want to kill him? And why did the Eastern Wasteland Belle say that she was a pitiable person? These questions tumbled through Long Chen's mind, but he couldn't come up with a reasonable answer. Other than that, he didn't understand what she meant by severing the karma between them. Karma was something so vague that people on their level shouldn't be able to touch it yet. He felt like his head would split. But since Lang Yuyen refused to answer, he didn't have the slightest solution to her problems. Swinging his head, he gave up trying to figure it out. Without being told the riddle, who could possibly find the answer? Boom! Long Chun followed Lang Yuyen's actions, and he swung his pot through the air. A huge opening actually appeared in the void. Long Chun looked inside and jumped in. The space behind him closed, and Long Chun appeared in a different world. It was his first time experiencing what it felt like to step across worlds. He had come from one world to another world just like that. Furthermore, he had done so relying on brute strength to tear open the spatial wall. This was almost inconceivable to him. These worlds were the minor worlds that the fallen experts had created. They weren't like the major worlds of the likes of the Martial Heaven continent. The major worlds had incredibly powerful spatial barriers. Other than those legendary immortals and gods, no one could tear through such barriers. The minor worlds here had been affected by the ancient battlefield, making the spatial walls extremely weak, allowing even Long Chun to break through them. This was a desolate land without a single blade of grass. Furthermore, there were battle scars everywhere, seemingly from many years ago. Boom! Long Chun smashed the pot in the air, revealing another large hole. He stepped through, entering another world. When he entered this world, he felt a chill. The air here was filled with brutality and slaughter. Ah! He had only just entered when an explosive sound rang out along with a miserable scream. Long Chen hastily rushed over. Rolling hills littered this land, and after passing one particular mountain, he saw a valley below. Over 10 corrupt experts were being chased down by a group of monsters within the valley. The monsters were a dark mass with only silver wings to offset their black bodies. Long Chun looked closer and realized that this swarm was actually a group of ants. All of them were dozens of meters long. Silverwing Heavenly King ants? He was surprised to see them. They were an extremely ancient kind of magical beast. Their bodies were as hard as iron, and they possessed limitless power. Their mandibles were strong enough to crush any ore. Legend was that the silverwing heavenly king ants consumed a kind of mithril spiritual crystal as food. For there to be so many of them here, there had to be a vein of it present. Mithril spiritual crystal was extremely rare. It could be refined into mithril, a material that was both tough and flexible. On its own, it couldn't be used to forge weapons. But it was a material that could be combined with hundreds of different materials to increase the quality of a weapon. A single drop of mithril could be stretched many miles without breaking. And the most miraculous aspect of it was that a strand of mithril many times thinner than a strand of hair would still have an even thickness throughout the strand. If the slightest bit of mithril was added to a spear, the spear would become even more flexible, giving it noticeable improvement when it came to attacking and defending. A piece of mithril would be just as expensive as his divine flame crystals. So Long Chun could guess why these corrupt experts were being chased by these silverwing heavenly king ants. One of those corrupt experts was holding a piece of mithril and running crazily. Despite the swarm of ants behind him, none of the corrupt experts were willing to toss the mithril away. Mithril wasn't heavy and could be drawn into a spatial ring. But it could only be drawn into extremely high-tier spatial rings, ones that were made with the best material. Otherwise, it would reject the spatial ring. These corrupt experts weren't particularly powerful. Some were at the soul transformation realm and some were at the jade core realm. The strongest amongst them was only a rank 7 celestial. In terms of speed, they weren't any faster than the silverwing heavenly king ants. Their wings had special runes that gave them the special ability to break through space. They were practically able to teleport. These silverwing heavenly king ants were extremely terrifying, and they had been famous even in ancient times. Although they could be classified as 8th rank magical beasts, equivalent to the human race's foundation forging realm, there were just too many of them. There were thousands of them. The corrupt experts' attacks were at most able to kill one or two of them before their attack power would drop to the point that it wasn't able to break the defenses of further silverwing heavenly king ants. Ah! One of the corrupt experts had just killed one of the ants when he was attacked by another. His body was crushed by its mandibles. His physical body was destroyed, and his Yuan spirit floated out. He tried to flee, but his Yuan spirit was struck by one of their wings. That wing unleashed a bizarre energy that destroyed his Yuan spirit in one blow. The corrupt experts were screaming miserably as they tried to fight them off. But there were too many of the ants. They were surrounded, and in just a few breaths they were annihilated. The mithril spirit crystals that they had obtained were grabbed by the ants, and they left, leaving behind only broken corpses. Long Chun glanced at the corpses and saw a few spatial rings. However, those people had been too weak, and they wouldn't have anything good in their spatial rings. Long Chun couldn't be bothered to take them. Furthermore, after fighting against the corrupt path for so many years, he hated looking through their spatial rings. There were too many revolting and infuriating things inside them. For such weak people to have entered this minor world, they had definitely entered accidentally, like when Long Chun had accidentally entered one to encounter Lang Yuan. Moreover, they didn't have the power to break through space. There were simply too many spatial openings in these broken minor worlds. As long as you found such an opening, you could enter. People as strong as Lang Yuan wouldn't bother wasting time searching. She could just brute force her way through. Long Chun passed the corrupt experts' corpses, following the silverwing heavenly king ants. The ground started to change color. A silver tint had appeared, and the ground was becoming harder. Even the stones on the mountains were silver now. Long Chun was familiar with this kind of stone. These were called companion ores. Normally, ores would be accompanied by their companion ores when they appeared naturally. Finding companion ores meant there was a high chance of finding the main ore you were looking for. As he advanced, more and more of these silver companion ores appeared. After reaching the top of a mountain, he saw a huge mountain range shining with a bright silver color. This huge mountain range looked like a winding silver dragon. These mountains were covered in many caves. He saw many silverwing heavenly king ants coming and going through them. Damn! This whole mountain is composed of mithril silver crystal. Although he had been prepared, he was still shocked to see such a huge vein. He appraised his surroundings. There was a huge basin below him, and the center was the vein of mithril silver crystal. There wasn't the slightest vegetation in this barren land, and everything was under the sight of the silverwing heavenly king ants. To try and steal anything in secret would be too difficult. Those corrupt experts were an excellent example. Long Chun jumped off the mountain and began walking brazenly toward the central mountain. He was quickly noticed by the busy silverwing heavenly king ants, and a swarm of them gathered around him. Golden flames erupted out of Long Chen's body. The terrifying heat left scorch marks on the ground where he passed. The reason he dared to advance so arrogantly was because the silverwing heavenly king ants' powerful defenses were only weak to fire. Their wings were extremely weak to fire, especially strong flames like the heaven incinerating flame. As expected, once he revealed this flame, they all retreated, not daring to block his path. More and more of them appeared, filling the sky and the ground. But none of them dared to try stopping him. They let out panicked cries. Those sounds weren't coming from their mouths. They were making these sounds by rubbing their wings together. This was a warning to their enemies. Human, you can stop right there. What do you want? Just as Long Chun reached the foot of the mountain, two figures appeared in the sky. They were human in form. One was a man, the other was a woman. They were clad in silver armor, and they had identical horns on their heads just like the silverwing heavenly king ants. These two were not actual humans. They were the Ant King and Ant Queen, and their cultivation bases were so powerful that they were able to take human form and speak to Long Chun. Their powerful auras crashed down on Long Chun. Silver light revolved in their eyes. It was like two sharp blades glaring at him. Long Chun seemed to not hear them, and he continued advancing, step after step, leaving scorched footprints behind him. Human, we don't want to be your enemy, but don't go too far, shouted the Ant King. Only then did Long Chun come to a pause. He raised his head and looked at them. I also don't want to be your enemy. It's the opposite. I hope we can work together. What do you mean? You want to trade for our mithril spirit crystal? Asked the Ant King. No, my target's not the mithril spirit crystal. I don't have the time to refine the ore. I want the mithril essence. Don't even think about it. Now the Ant Queen opened her mouth, infuriated. Her aura surged, causing space to rumble. The silverwing heavenly king ants slowly got closer, seemingly ready to fight at any moment. I said that I don't want to be your enemy and that we can work together. But it seems you're questioning my attitude. Fine. Space exploded, and a flame dragon appeared in the air, revolving around Long Chun. It let out a heaven-shaking roar, igniting heaven and earth. This huge flame dragon looked down upon the Ant Queen.